It is now 7 o'clock. Are we all set with the cable? Okay. Calling the meeting to order. If I can get myself organized, we'll be all set. I will start by reading the agenda. Some of these things will be taken out of order. We do the best we can with scheduling, but things come up, and or things get long, and then we have to take things out of order. So we'll do the best we can. At 7 p.m., community input. 7:05, vote to amend conservation restriction at 211 Bellows Hill Road. 7:15, approve the fiscal 2020 payroll changes. 7:30, a discussion with the Carlisle Public Schools about the Carlisle Public School issues, the reviewing of the draft solar RFP and the Quarry building elevator replacement. At 8:15, we're going to have the visit of Representative Tammy Gouveia and she's going to give us a legislative update. 8:45, review and approve the 2019 annual appointments. 9 o'clock, the Selectmen policy and guideline review. We're going to review the policy about computer, email, and internet use. At 9:15, the Collins Center report on organization efficiency of town government. We're going to have a discussion about succession planning. The recommendation on page 41. At 9:45, town administrators report. 9:55, the liaison reports. 10:10, approval of minutes, and 10:15, God willing, adjournment.
Should be able to get out before then.
Great. Is there anybody here for community input? Are you here? Do you want us? You're waiting for? We are expecting Barney, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do the voting to amend the conservation restriction at 211 Bellows Hill Road. Is there somebody here for that?
Yes. Ben Hart is here. Still here. This is a restated and amended conservation restriction. First, I thought I'd show you where it is. It's kind of right in the heart of the Carlisle part of the Estabrook Woods. It's this property here. The big red area is Harvard University, Estabrook Woods. This is the Davis Conservation Corridor out here, and then there's other surrounding pieces of the Rockstrom land here, other pieces of conservation land. So it's in a really critical location. The original restriction on this dates back to 1978. And it was a very loosely worded, difficult to interpret, difficult for both the grantor and the grantee to understand. It had no specificity as far as what could be done where on the property. Property was confined to a single-family residence, but that residence could have moved anywhere it wanted. And the rest of it was agriculture and recreation. The new owners of it, it's changed hands. There have been 6 owners of the property since I've lived in town, starting with Ed and Joan Bartlett, who gave the original restriction. But the current owners ran into some problems in what they wanted to do and agreed to a amendment. And I'll show you what we've done. Here is the property. And now, rather than the whole thing being uniform, you can do sort of anything, anywhere, we've set aside 3 different zones. There's building envelope A, which is this I'm colorblind, so I'm not sure. That might be red. I'm not sure.
Pink? Yep.
And this is 5.5 acres, and this is where the residents must be now. It's got to be confined to this area. There are very few other restrictions on this aside from the fact that it be a single-family residence, which is the core of the original restriction. Then outside of it, we have building envelope B, which runs up here, from here to here, and this whole area out here. And that basically matches the original restriction. It's agriculture and recreation. And there can be outbuildings for animals. There can be a tennis court, riding rings. The people who now own it are horse people, and so they're particularly interested in being able to do that. And that is basically the same as what the current restriction does. But then we've added two restricted areas. One up here that runs from the north side of the B envelope up to the border, and another one out here. And those are no building, no activity, really restricted area, of which there was none in the original restriction. And each one has now a public trail. There have been trails running through the property, but never public ones. It's always been by the good wishes of the owners. Now we have a public trail that runs from Bellows Hill over to the Carr Conservation Land. Within the Carr land, there's a trail that runs through here, also another one that runs north and comes out eventually on School Street. And that trail connects with this one, which runs all the way through here and comes out at the Harvard land. So we've, in exchange basically for letting them do whatever they want here, as long as it's single family, we have public access. That's the basic trade-off. Any questions?
Yes?
So the part where they can do whatever they want, that's just like anybody's property. The only restriction is it can only be that one house.
Single-family residence.
And I think these said this because it wasn't really clear to me when reading through this. So the concession, the reason for going through this is they wanted to be able to do kind of whatever they wanted on that 5 acres.
Right.
And we wanted the trails and the more restrictive on either end.
Which are 12 acres of restricted land, plus the public access.
Okay.
And everybody who's looked at it thought it was an excellent trade-off. The state agreed with that.
Where's the driveway for that? Is it on the left there?
The driveway is right here. It's right at the corner of Bellows Hill and Estabrook.
Right, okay.
And runs in like this to the house.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions? I actually had a couple of questions because the way it's structured, the restrictions are structured. And it does say, subject to restrictions elsewhere, to exceptions elsewhere.
Right, that's how all restrictions are written. You first say you can't do nothing.
Okay,
and then here's the list of what you really can do.
Okay, but the thing that worried me were the utility structures for building envelope A, when there's nothing under, no temporary or permanent structure or facility on, above, or under the premises. And
You're looking at section A.
I'm
2A.
looking at section A, 2A,
Yeah.
prohibited acts and uses.
Yeah.
That, if building envelope A or building envelope B needed some utilities, say, you know, you have a barn that you want to, you know, put lights in or something, and if it had for some reason to go across, you know,
Yeah.
or under any, you know, your non-A or B things, how could they get that there? Because it doesn't say that they can get there.
Well, they couldn't. And that's one of the reasons why the restricted areas are at the outer extremes of the
edge.
property.
Okay. Okay. All righty. That was my major question, was how, you know, you can do forestry, you can't cut anywhere but except that you can cut on A and B. Okay, got it.
So you can't, the only places where you can't cut trees are in the outer edge ones, right?
Not without a very detailed forestry plan that's been approved by
But on the larger
the grantee.
And then on the larger piece, and obviously the one where they can do whatever they want, but the larger, kind of lighter red one, they can cut there because that's for agriculture.
They can do it for agricultural purposes.
Reading this, the super restrictive was just those two outer ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
I guess, again, and this may be the way it's always done again, but you have, under B, reserved rights and exceptions. One is, you know, the building envelope A. Two is the building envelope B. And
And
three.
that also applies to A. They can do agriculture on A.
Okay, and then there's also uses. Okay, so uses permitted on the entire premises. So it looks like forestry is permitted on the entire premises.
With a approved plan.
So,
If you
okay,
read through that, you'll see there's got to be a management
yeah, there's a management plan in
plan,
there.
and it's got to be approved by the grantee, which is the town of Carlisle.
And, okay, so it's, all right, fine. I guess I'm just not used to it, because it says you can't do anything, and then here it says, now you can do site restoration, you can have forestry, all the things you told me I couldn't do before.
It's kind of like use tech terms, it's kind of like a deny all, and then you add what you
Right.
want to allow.
Yeah, right, I know, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the owners of the property didn't understand that at first. It took a while.
All right,
to,
good.
uh,
Just as
make it
long as
clear.
this is the way it's supposed to look, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the amended and restated conservation restriction granted to the town of Carlisle, Massachusetts, acting by and through its Conservation Commission for the property located at 211 Bellows Hill Road, which the original restriction is recorded with the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds at Book 2324, page 129.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously.
Very nice presentation.
Yes,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Now it has to go to the state for their signature. Do you take care of that? And then it will come back to you? Okay, and then finally it has to go up to the Registry of Deeds in Lowell.
Certainly.
Let the homeowners do. We'll let them take it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has to leave this here, or?
I don't think we need it. Thank you.
Did I lose my, no, I didn't. Payroll changes.
Why don't you swear in the members right here, Barney?
And here's Barney. I've already sworn in.
Swear you into the...
Okay, here's Barney.
Hi, I'm so sorry to be late.
You should be.
I was at a book fest that was very successful.
Send this back
Just
the
got
other way.
dropped off.
Okay. You need to sign this. I'll give you my pen so you don't have to dig out one.
No, let me sign the second one before.
Oh, it's okay. All right.
Trust.
That's what we do.
Perfect. Thank you.
You keep coming, we're just going to make you sit up here at the booth.
That goes to,
I'm sorry, but I don't.
no, that's my pen.
Two step.
Thank you.
Oh, we got to stay.
All right.
Oh, good. It felt so good.
Yeah, stretching. It's the seventh thing is stretch. Okay. Do you all solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as members of the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust for the town of Carlisle, in accordance with the bylaws of the town and the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
A little more reading.
Okay. All right, we have the approval of the fiscal year 2020 payroll changes.
What you have in the packet is listing of all non-union town employees, a lot of the union employees as well. And the 2% wage adjustment has been factored into the FY20 wages and salaries. We also show police officers and communications officers whose salaries were determined by collective bargaining agreements that the board had signed off on. Also, employment agreements such as Chief Fisher's and my own are reflected but have already been voted. So you're really voting on the non-union employees, the 2% increase for the non-union.
Right.
And their steps.
So, in some cases, you'll see people are getting their third-year step during this fiscal year.
And just for my information as a new person here, so I see that like Anush Coates is on two different budgets, building and finance, and same thing with Nancy Mullane, and is that,
They both
this
work
means
in
they
two
work,
departments.
got it, okay,
Time in two different departments.
got it.
And I think just as a note, there are two numbers for each police officer, and we believe those are for shift differential
Yes.
things. And that probably ought to be footnoted at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's just
Yeah, that's good. Good, yeah, good suggestion.
And what are the special officers? Or who are the special I mean,
They're-
what is that?
They're not full-time sworn officers, so they're the folks you see doing occasional road details and special events, so they're not full-time.
Memorial Day,
Got
whenever
it.
they need extras. Also like weekends sometimes too, right?
Right. Filling in, yeah.
Okay.
Cover vacations.
Yeah, they're the ones that come when there's elections as well.
Like a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the proposed fiscal year 2020 payroll changes dated June 4th, 2019, excluding those employees under contractual agreements and those union-represented employees.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous. Well, we're 10 minutes early for, but I do see, is Rob here? What?
They go up to the finance committee first, or they?
Should we, okay,
What do you want to start with, Jonathan, on the solar RFP and do?
okay, yeah, all right. Sorry, Jonathan, I didn't see you. Yeah. Let's do that one. Please.
Judge Judy.
Do you want me to keep passing them along? Or wait?
No, wait.
I'll just sign them and it's okay.
Okay,
Yes.
so I understand that Tim sent you a early draft in your packets. That had most of the changes on it that we've done. We've continued to make a few more over the weekend. The main thing that's missing right now from the draft that you have is changes to the lease and PPA. Yes.
That was
so
what I was going to ask about.
Town council would like to take the changes or the lease and the PPA that you've already approved with the changes that you asked for at the last time and the changes that the schools asked for, remove all the wording that's specific to Amoresco and some of the other concerns that town council had as Amoresco was going back and forth with them at the last minute, and put that in here. However, town council says that It will likely take her through the end of this week and possibly into the beginning of next week to complete all those changes.
I'll just tell you, we didn't approve it because you didn't go forward with it, so we never approved it. I
Okay.
know because I read everything, I sent all my comments in, and then nothing happened with it, so
Okay, yes.
just saying.
It was, yes, there was something funny about how it
Yeah,
was
so
approved in
that's, in
draft
fact,
modification
I have
pending this and
I
that.
have my annotated
Yep.
one from the other one, and I was going to ask you why this
so-
draft and not one we were looking at with Amoresco.
So that change still has to be done, and it's just a lot of
Okay,
work
yeah.
to get it incorporated in. So there have been a few other changes since the draft was received. I don't think Tim forwarded you the latest one, but you might not have time to look at it. I can go over
we?
what's different in that if you want. But mostly what I'm here for is if you guys have specific changes, things you looked at and didn't like, things you wanted to have changed, improved, whatever, I can take notes on that now and we can fix it up. One other thing is, I understand there's an additional 2-week holding period from the time we send it into the state until it gets officially published. As a result, the dates that you're looking at have already slipped by 2 weeks. And with the complexity of the changes the town council needs to make, I think we've slipped another week. So in the 2 weeks since I last spoke to you, we've slipped 3 weeks. So it's not a good track record, but
Okay.
we're hoping to fix that.
Hopefully we're getting it all done up front, all the slipping.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah.
Although, yes, we know that's not likely.
Is this going out to the same folks who received the ones previously?
Yes, so I believe it gets published with the state, right?
Right.
Somehow.
So anybody can
And-
bid.
Anybody
So
can bid.
anyone can receive it, and we've been in discussions, we're going to send it to at least the ones that responded to the last one, I think the ones that picked up the packet for the last one. Any other solar companies that anyone knows, we'd be happy to send them an email with it. So, yeah.
If I remember right, the last time we did the RFP, there was something about the way we did it that kind of bound us to doing something with one of them. I mean, it was something about the timing of what we wanted to do, or the pricing, or something that basically the way we were going about it in the RFP meant that we had to move forward with the project. You remember that, Tim?
I don't know, because the town, you can always cancel procurement if it's in the town's best interest. So I don't think there's anything that would bind you. But there might have been language about certain block groups or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, in this one, I know there is a specific section that says that the town can cancel this at any point for any reason
Yeah, I
if the
saw that.
town
It's
needs
just-
their
yeah.
interest.
Okay.
So,
Now, this includes things like the ground mount component and that kind of thing, but that's not going to be part of the bid.
no,
Yeah.
so you're probably looking at the one that had the edits, because we took the original one and went
Okay.
through the edits. So
Yeah.
many of those are crossed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
We
there's the
probably-
annotation.
Yeah, there's no date on this, so I
Yeah.
can't tell.
It's almost,
Yeah,
So probably what we should do is get you a clean copy.
that would be nice.
Yeah.
right.
I hate edited.
Just the
know.
parking lot and not the bus area.
Right, that's in here.
Yep.
Right, not to mix them up.
Yeah.
So we're right up against the timeline, I think.
Well, so I was going to say, since we know it's going to take town council through probably next Monday to finish up, one possibility for us is to get you a clean copy and have you vote on it at the next meeting. It'll mean we end up delaying essentially another week, but I think it might be in the best interest of the town to get you a clean copy with all of the edits edited.
Are any of them really substantial edits?
No, I mean, I can go through the ones that we've made since then, right? There's really, it's almost all just wording things, right? Minor adjustments. So, would you like me to run through them real quick?
I think we should and see if we can't
Just do it
approve
now?
it. Yeah, just so we don't lose another week.
Good. So on the very first page, we added the word canopy to make it clear that we're doing a canopy, not any old array. On the third page, we're dropping the 180 days to 120 days. The reason for that is 120 days keeps it in 2019, and it's going to make it clear to any developer that they are not going to be held to a particular price point if they fall into 2020 incentives. Okay? On page 4, we added some additional information informing the town, informing the applicant that town meeting has already approved this,
Okay. 'Cause-
and that we have an intent to finish the process this year in order to allow them to apply for 2019 incentives. Page 5, minor typo. Page 7, some wording around the details of what exactly the ISA that we're not procuring an ISA, we're applying for an ISA. So there's some wording around that. Page 10, some of the eco-friendly stuff was changed over to be sustainability, so there's better wording. Also on page 10, a similar change in terms of prevent versus mitigate, just wording changes, just wordsmithing it to be right. Page 12, similarly, instead of talking about eco-friendly, we described it as environmental. Page 13 is the added page that adds the description of the solar overlay district that we approved at town meeting so that the applicants would have that right in front of them. And then there's some minor wording changes on page 14. And those are the only differences since the ones we got in your packet, and we can get you an electronic copy. I think we already got them one electronic copy.
Yes, yeah.
Good. Yep.
So that's the changes that have happened so far. That's been through, I think, 4/5 of the solar working group, something like that. So most of us have commented on it and believe it's final and good to go on pages like 1 through 13 or whatever. And then the remaining pages after that are all town council legalese. So
Yeah, and after that, honestly, we have another crack at all those leases
Yes.
before we sign them. So I'm not,
Yep.
these are draft leases
These are-
as examples to the people that are, so they don't have to be as perfect
Right.
as, so I would be comfortable with, I wouldn't be comfortable with what you showed us here as the original draft
Right.
leases,
No,
because
I agree.
I prefer the one that we've already massaged.
Right.
But, okay.
So, but on pages 1 through 15, do you guys have any changes you'd like us to make to that in terms of either wordsmithing it or anything fundamental, like the canopy shall only be here or there, oriented this way, or I don't know, anything like that?
First of all, I think that's much more in the purview of the school committee than ours. And they've already indicated they don't want it over the buses. Is that correct? Or not?
I don't think they've had a chance to meet, so
Oh.
we're going to talk about that.
Okay, well, that's,
But you'll be
Yes.
working together.
I get to go to both.
Okay,
yes, indeed.
okay.
Does anybody
you.
have any other comments?
Just make a motion.
Please do.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request for proposal for the lease of real property for the construction of a solar photovoltaic canopy array, RFP number PV 198-1, with amendments as described tonight, and any other amendments that don't materially change the nature of the RFP.
Second.
Any further?
Slight wording, it said 198, I think the 8 was crossed out.
Not on this.
No, yeah.
It should just be 19-1.
Okay. Yeah, you also have the years 2019, 20,198.
Yeah. Similar editing.
Yeah.
I knew I was feeling old tonight.
And those are the types of edits you can just make.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right,
Editorial is no problem.
yeah.
Just one other thing I would add, I spoke with the paving contractor regarding
Yeah.
Yeah,
the school parking lot. He is willing to do the job next year for the same price,
ooh,
which is an alternative to canceling all bids and rebidding again
yes,
next year.
that would be,
We'd have to have a broader conversation with FinCom and with the school, but that's a possibility.
Sounds like a good deal.
yeah,
This
well,
project
we do, it was in a warrant article.
It was a pretty
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
price.
and it was a good price, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like $30,000 less than we.
Must be expecting the cost to go down.
So, just something.
Maybe, yeah, okay. Okay, nothing? So there's a motion on the table. Did I hear a second?
You did.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Before, I
Yep.
just had a question. So tomorrow, the school committee will be discussing the RFP. So I don't know if we want to include anything about, changes that the school committee might.
Contingent on the,
Well, he said as long as it doesn't
Not
materially
materially
change the
If the
RFP.
material changes it, then you'd have to come back
Yeah,
afterwards.
so we're covered
Yeah.
there. Okay.
all right. So motion was made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to keep it going.
Yeah, thanks for your good work on this. Wow.
See what happens when you get involved?
I know.
I know.
Should have known better.
That'll teach you. You should have learned from Lee.
Talk to you after.
Yeah, no, my wife warned me.
And you didn't listen to her either.
First time ever. I know that since I'm on TV.
I just texted them that we're ready for it. Yeah, thanks all will be coming down.
Okay. Yeah, it's 7:31. They have to show up. We're ready for them.
By
Yeah.
the way, the discussion with you that we're going to
So we could sign these. While we're waiting for the
Anybody notice?
the FinCom to come, we are working to get these signatures as, what do you call it, DocuSign format. And what I have arranged to do is meet with Priscilla once a week or whenever she has things ready, walk through these with her before they get sent to you
We sent them
for
back. Barney's got
DocuSigning, so that we know that at least one person has actually looked at them.
With the DocuSign, will the DocuSign include all of the enclosed material, the scan of it?
Yes, so that you can see it
Wow.
and have some time to look at it. But it won't be, either that, or if I can't get to it, you'll be notified whether I've looked at it or not. But,
Can I just ask a quick question?
sure.
Do we just have the click-through contract with DocuSign, or did we negotiate a contract? Because we would be putting people's salaries and everything in that DocuSign. We'd probably want to have some kind of an agreement where they will protect that data.
Okay. Well, this has not happened yet. Regardless, I will be going once a week anyway to be reviewing these, because after being interviewed twice by the accountant, the auditor, what do you do to prevent fraud? And it's, we sign audits,
Are you going to scan all the bills, so it's all going to be
Yes,
electronically
every single,
in there?
you see them?
That's great. Is once you guys get that going, is the school going to do it the same way then? Or will just go for the second signer to
You and I need to have tea and talk about that.
procedural
I'm not
stuff?
going to,
Okay.
so I'm not signing these tonight. I will sign them tomorrow when I,
We've already signed them down here.
oh, you already signed them? Sorry, I didn't look at that.
Luke needs to sign some of them.
I thought you did.
This is what happens when you're on the end of the table.
Okay. All right. So who do we have here?
Pass these two down.
Yeah.
Wow, our audience
Just leave them up.
yeah,
That's-
tripled.
Superintendent, members of the
Okay.
committee, school facilities manager.
All right.
No, Barney was-
To talk about the Quarry building elevator replacement. Welcome. Not. No, the news is not welcome. You guys are welcome, but the news is not welcome.
Did I miss one? Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Please, here. Okay.
So,
This is quite a major project to do. The lead time of most of the equipment is 3 to 4 months. So we're going to be developing it, I would say, into the fall.
Do you want to give the backstory a little bit in case everybody doesn't know?
So I guess I can jump in. So as long as I can remember, so that's 2 years that I've been in town, the elevator has been on the long-term capital plan for replacement. It's outdated. Its useful life has gone by, and replacement parts have become difficult to get. And when David Flannery was here, he continuously said we need to take action on this. But for the last couple of years, we felt we really wanted to get as much life out of the elevator as possible. So we kicked that can down the road as far as we could. And we were hoping we could do it for another 2 to 5 years. But that all came to an end a couple of weeks ago when the hydraulic system went out, and the elevator just doesn't operate anymore. Part of the problem with the hydraulics is it's filled with hydraulic oil, so we also now had this oil seeped into the base of the elevator system, and the oil couldn't be located, so that means it's gone into the foundation in the dirt. So there's also going to be some other costs that go along with cleaning up the space as we try to get the elevator operating again. But as Rob pointed out, we've taken we've brought in Associated Elevator. They've given us a couple of estimates. First was an estimate on just replacing the hydraulic system, which is about $65,000. And then we asked for the estimate to replace the elevator, which is what we've been looking to do for the last number of years. That came back at a cost of about $95,000, so it's $95,000 plus the $65,000. And then there's some other costs I think Rob mentioned around mitigation and checking the soil and checking the water and making sure that everything is safe with regard to the leaking of hydraulic fluid. So we're looking at a price, an estimate around $175, $180. We had a meeting with Tim early last week, and we talked about approaching our insurance company. So I think we've got a claim in with the insurance company now to see if we can get some of the funds back from there. We had to talk about what funds might be available in this year, and this year's, so that we could possibly put that towards the cost of this, because we do need to get out ahead of this. This is a four-month process. We have graduation on Thursday, so we're not going to have an elevator for graduation, but we would like to have an elevator by October, right, before the snow takes effect. So we thought we'd come forward and see what we could do to make this work so that we can have an operating elevator and meet the standards. And
Is this the only elevator company?
They're the elevator company that services the district and the school's elevators. Since they are our vendor that we already have, brought them out. They were the ones that actually decommissioned the elevator when they came out and were able to lift the elevator car out and check out, investigate the pit, troubleshoot everything. They're on the state bid list as a vendor with the IG's office and everything like that too already. So Tim was saying we wouldn't have to. It's an emergency repair, emergency replacement, and the fact that they're already our vendor and they're a vendor on the state bid list, we don't have to put it out to bid. So the only difference you would probably get if you put out the bid would be a different company. They might have different finishes for the interior or something. You know what I mean? But the mechanic parts are all competitive pricing.
Would there be a difference in delivery?
Not necessarily. In this company, their modernization team was 12 months out. But since they are the ones that with the service company on record, they were able to reorganize their crew and have them ready for this process if we do pick them. We do sign them up, so they would have that crew available in the fall instead of 12 months from now.
Months, jeez.
So reading through this, it seems like it's not replacing the entire elevator. It's just replacing a lot of the components and the wiring and.
It's replacing the hydraulic jack for one. That's the major part that drives the elevator, but it's also all the electrical connections for the switch, for the transfer switch, for emergency power, for with the upgrade fire alarm, on each landing. We have to have different recall switches put in.
They put in a phone.
We just put a new phone in.
Oh, you just put in a phone.
But it does include another new phone, I guess.
So it's kind of refurbishing it, but it's not actually replacing the actual box.
All the equipment in the voiceaway we knew.
The box is the same?
The box would be the same, but it'll be all
The rails and everything are going to be new too, as I read it. Yeah.
I think I think this elevator needs a new phone. Can we have your old one?
Absolutely.
Sure can.
Are there any antiquated parts that would remain? Because I know the issue is replaceable parts, all those would go out.
Yeah, so the whole control panel would be replaced too, and right now that's all like a click clack and relay from the 1980s. So now everything now is digital scroll. So you're going to have a system that's going to be smoother. It's not going to be as jerky when it's going up and down and things like that too. So.
Is there a museum interested in buying it?
I doubt it. It's not that old,
It's not that whole-
fortunately.
So what kind of life will that give the elevator if all this refurbishing is done? What are they projecting?
You probably have another 25, 30 year shelf life. Yeah, 25, 30 years.
So how do we pay for it?
Yeah, that's
the big
question du jour. So I think,
Finance director?
yeah, okay. Bonnie, what's our strategy?
Well, we have a couple of different options, and what we're looking to do is keep as many options open as we can. So we don't think that covering this through year-end transfers entirely is possible. We're not sure what the insurance availability, how much they're going to cover of this. I'm sure it's going to be the full, repair. But there's another option that could be available to us with the vote of the Board of Selectmen. So we did talk to the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, and I think Sean Cronin actually gave us the approval that if the board declared this situation as an emergency or disaster that needed to be addressed immediately, you can deficit spend for the project, much like you can for snow and ice. So it's the same essentially process. It's a little bit of a different section in Mass General Law, but it would allow us to deficit spend for the project. And then at the end of the year, in setting the tax rate for next year, we would raise it like we would a snow and ice deficit on the tax recap. We don't anticipate needing all of this project to be covered as a deficit spending authorization, but there might be a component. So we could transfer for part of it, we could get insurance coverage for part of it, and if there's any amount remaining that we couldn't cover, then we could raise it on the recap if the board votes to do this. It's just leaving our options open, and where we haven't closed our books yet, we don't know what we'll have available for transfers at year end. I know the school was looking at, if they had any funding, that they're in the same process that we are. We're not at year end yet. So we're looking at this as really just to hedge and leave ourselves in the best position to deal with the issue of pay.
Is there a difference between doing it now when we're still in fiscal 19 and doing it on July 1st and in fiscal 20?
In order for the school to be able to execute a contract, we have to have the funding secured now. So they won't be able to sign off on a contract to repair the elevator in 19.
From a town planning standpoint, though.
Well, you don't have an appropriation in fiscal 20 either, so you're better off doing this now than you would be in fiscal 20 because, again, you can't execute a contract without the funding secured.
And what are the compliance issues for being out of compliance?
Right now, we have, it's ADA requirements, and we have students, handicapped student has to go outside the building now and around the perimeter of the building just to go to the gym class. And it'll also be the same thing for anybody visiting the school. Like for graduation, it's going to be indoors on Thursday, where, that could be a little tough with people coming in from downstairs and not having the elevator to use now, and they have to go around and go up the ramp and go front.
Is this the only elevator? There's no freight elevator in it?
No, there's
No other elevator?
No other elevator.
I was just saying, we asked about the consequences for non-compliance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like penalties or?
Sure of that, there's no. But and then there's the gym, and then there's the work that's going to be done on the same now. Will that be open in the winter time frame? That is, the RFP is out on that. We're waiting to hear back. So we still have hopes that project will be started, if not completed this summer. There's no relationship between the two, though. No relationship. Except for maybe more kids going down to that area. But once that's open. Yeah, we'll have more kids going down once the Performing Arts Studio opens up and all our band students will be going downstairs, but they're not going down. So it's another reason we really need to have a function. need to be in compliance, and once the winter gets, it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah.
It does, right? So we can get,
These ramps are not,
we can get through
my
October. I think
point.
October is the time we could struggle through, but November, it won't be appropriate.
And if we do it now, then we can see if there's any money this year that we could use. We could see if there's any money next year that
Yes,
we
we
could
can
use.
spread it out.
And then borrow or whatever,
We can
raise the
minimize the
rest.
impact in the fiscal 20 budget.
Yeah, by doing it now.
addressing this
And it could just be the deposits now for the contract, which is what, 20% of each one, so I think it was like 50,000 to exercise the hydraulic, the piston repair and the purchase of the modernization equipment.
Just getting the vote secured to deficit spend allows them to execute the contracts. How we actually fund it
Yeah.
will be determined in
Right.
mid-July.
Okay.
Do you have language drafted for us for a motion that, that what it should look like?
What you want us to do?
Because you have it's like the book and verse and,
I would say that it would look something like that, to request that the board vote in accordance with Mass General Law 44, Section 31.
I can try it. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Oh,
you already have one here?
I don't have the motion, but
Okay.
4431, the authorization of deficits spent without appropriation.
I move that the Board of Selectmen pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31, the Board of Selectmen of Carlisle, declare an emergency due to catastrophic failure of the main elevator at Quarry Building of the Carlisle Public School, and request of the state that we are able to deficit spend as per the letter drafted from Tim Goddard, dated June 12, 2019.
Second?
any further discussion? Questions? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? That's unanimous.
We just can't get ahead of this stuff, can we?
We just declared ourselves an emergency.
We have a chance to. The grant elevator is 22 years old.
Yes.
So we could plan for
So I
what
actually,
year we would like to put that in.
I asked Associated while they were out and looking at the Quarry one to give me an assessment of the grant. Just
Yeah,
knowing that.
just to know.
By get ahead, I meant spend less money.
All right.
Might be cheaper to be proactive.
Avoid the environmental piece if we don't let it fail, so.
Yeah.
I was going to throw it out and he said, "Oh, I'll wear it."
Because having had some history in this issue a little bit more than 2 years, the decision would always come back when we were looking at our long-term caps priorities, and the long-term caps decision had always been to kind of run the luck on this, and so here we are, dealing with that. And so
Out of
I
luck.
think it's just worth pausing.
Well, now, I know on long-term caps, ironically, you said next year is the year.
We're going to do
For the
it.
elevator?
Actually do it, 'cause, I mean, we had this conversation again, and, it said, well, this has to be taken care of. We've run as far as we probably can with our luck. It'll need to be replaced. And we didn't formally vote, but as a committee, we discussed, this has got to be a priority for the next fiscal year. So
Yeah.
and then I went to school for something and saw the caution tape. It was like, ran out of road.
I mean, it's never there's never an abundance of options, I understand, under the long-term caps considerations, but,
So I'm hoping to hear
Worth
back
a
from
pause.
the insurance adjuster to come out for the site visit, and she gave me some numbers. I forwarded the insurance company both these quotes, so they have what we're looking at for a total expenditure. See what they say from there.
Is it realistic to think the insurance company, does this qualify under?
I spoke with the account executive last week, and she thinks it's covered under equipment failure. Fingers crossed, but we'll see if that's the case. But
Couldn't we have gotten the whole building paid for?
Building failure.
Well, we have maintenance records, so it's not because it was neglected or anything, so.
We repaired it.
Yeah.
It was tested and inspected and passed,
Yeah.
maintained monthly, and I put that in my narrative so the insurance company too.
Yeah.
they need to know, like, it's not probably, we have looked at this thing in 20 years. Right.
Yeah.
No, and I remember in our discussions, it was the things that we were out of compliance that we could correct. And we were doing those things. So it just was old, and the narrative was if the key parts go, we can't get replacements. And if the wrong thing fails, then we're out of luck. Yeah. And I seem to recall that the worst thing failing would be the hydraulics. The really worst thing would have some fluid leaking out of the hydraulics. So.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys all for coming down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's our role? What's FinCom's role? Is it to work with the director to figure out how to best come up with a funding recommendation? What's our committee's role at this point?
Well, if we are going to do year-end transfers, then you would have to approve those with the Board of Selectmen. If it's pure deficit spending, the Board of Selectmen have approved that. So you will likely have a role in approving this.
Even if not at the deficit spending and dealing with the fact that we deficit spending, we will have a role.
Right. Sooner or later.
Great.
Thank you.
We still need to get that date, and I'll get back to you. But it wasn't this week anyway, so I thought, okay, I'll see how things shake up for next week.
Okay, good to see you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Hey, we're ahead of things.
All right, we are
We're ahead
ahead
of
of time. So, and seeing no Tammy, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and start doing some of these annual appointments. And I think we'll just start. Well, we're not going to start with the Affordable Housing Trust. We're going to do that after
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. Because although there are 4 letters of interest, but I think that discussion has to happen next week or next meeting. I think we should appoint the Agricultural Commissions. There are 3 letters of interest, and there will still be 1 vacant associate, but I think we could at least get the 3 regular members.
Is still a vacant associate?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I heard that Desiree Ball might be moving shortly.
She confirmed that last night.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, at the Bog Committee meeting.
Okay. So we'll be losing her as well. But she's also an associate, so we're going to need to be looking for a couple of associates. So
how do you do that? You need a motion to accept,
to appoint
Okay,
these 3 people.
I'll make a motion
There you
to
go.
appoint Andrew Rogers, Concord, do we have to say the
Concord,
address?
yeah.
185 Concord Street, Steve Huberman, 761 Concord Street, and Kyle Bonenfant, 47 Hart Farm Road, to the Agricultural Commission for the town of Carlisle, Massachusetts. Oh, to a term to expire in,
These are
2022.
Why are we doing 2019?
yeah, because that's
That's
passed.
because their term expired, and
have to do
that's going to be
2022?
updated to
2022.
They're in
So-
boldface because they are expiring.
2020.
Right, to a term to expire in 2022.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next one is the Audit Committee. We need to wait for them to recruit because we don't have any. Yes. The next one is Board of Registrars. We
Do we
had.
not want to at least just have those 2 people?
Their
No.
terms, their
They don't
term's not up.
They
expire.
don't expire, so.
Simon, move.
Actually, no, but, it's moot. We don't have to wait for recruiting. No, it says 1 vacant position because Deb Belanger is not there. That's what.
Did you say Simon Platt?
Yeah, he's my neighbor. Well, he was my neighbor.
He's moving?
He's gone.
Moved.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah.
Oh, he's moved.
Yeah.
So he's not there either. So
They
there's
got
2
2.
vacancies.
Yeah.
So could you make a note of that, Jen, and update it? Okay. On the Board of Registrars, we had a memo from Mary, the clerk, saying she has confirmation from Kay Hurley that she's interested. However, she needs to be nominated by the Democratic Town Committee. They're meeting on Thursday, so we have to wait till the 25th in order to put her on, because she has to come, she has to be affiliated with major party. Okay, Energy Task Force. We need to, we reappoint Young, Bentley, and Zog, and appoint Jonathan DeCock, for a new term, for his first term. And I'm wondering why this term is only 1 year on this committee. Is there some reason?
It's only a one-year committee.
I know.
I don't,
Is there?
way predates me, but it's
I
just, it's
understand.
a one-year.
We don't know why. Okay, we can talk about.
The charter has to change for that to go to something more than a year.
Personally, I think that the shorter it is, the more likely we
Get people to sign on.
Because they think they'll do it for a year, and then they just stay on and on and on.
Yeah.
Okay, with no term limits.
I don't know about that. I think it was because it was a task force rather than a committee. It was originally a one-year deal.
That's possible. Okay,
That's the record that we have.
all right.
Well, maybe we just leave it that way.
So everybody has to be reappointed, except for the three that are leaving.
Dan Cook is leaving.
Yes.
Sue Zakar.
Yes.
And Bob Clark.
And Bob Clark.
Okay.
So
who's the new person?
Jonathan DeCock. Okay, can I have a,
Do we have an address for Jonathan?
It's Oak Knoll.
Oak Knoll, yes.
I don't know what number.
That the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint to the Energy Task Force Robert Zog, 923 North Road, Deb Bentley, 128 Heald Road, Helen Young, 623 Heel Road, and Jonathan DeCock from Oak Knoll to a term to expire June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, appoint tonight, let me see, Celebration Committee. I think we can appoint the 4 people who have said they would like to be appointed or reappointed. And I think we're going to be missing a couple of people, because there's supposed to be 5 and we have 4, so there's 1 vacant spot. For anybody out there in TV land who's thinking about, joining any committees, this would be a great place to get your feet wet. It's, low.
People.
Meets twice a year.
Meets twice a year, and
it's celebrations.
What could be better? Exactly.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I move that the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint to the Celebrations Committee for a term of 1 year to expire June 30th, 2020, Scott Evans of 299 Heald Road, Doug Stevenson, 271 Cross Street, Heidi Herring, 322 West Street, and Laura Mullins at 75 West Street.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Conservation Commission, we can reappoint tonight. The 2 members who have indicated that they would like to continue for an additional term.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint to the Conservation Commission for a term of 3 years to expire in 2022, Angela Verge, 29 Indian Hill, and Helen Young, 623 Heald Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I think the Conservation Restriction Advisory Committee can be reappointed tonight.
I move that
It's all of them, yeah.
Yes.
I move that the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint to the Conservation Restriction Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year to expire June 30th, 2019.
2020.
2020. Mark Lemire, 374 Rutland Street. J. Thomas Brownrigg, 5 Acton Street. Jonathan Stevens, 871 Maple Street. Nancy Cowan, 36 Russell Street. Melinda Lindquist, 83 Acton Street. Wayne Davis, 739 Concord Street. And Ken Hart, 64 Essex Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Community Preservation Committee.
What happened to the Cranberry Bog?
Yeah, Carlisle.
Oh, that uses that.
Because I'm adding a couple.
Okay.
Sorry, that we had in our packet last week.
Oh, yeah, it's not here. It means it mustn't exist anymore. Oh, what a shame.
Yes, so we have one member with the term expiring from Conscom, and one member with the term expiring from Historic Commission, and we're going to need one member from Housing. And the reason I have this on there is because we need to get applications on file for those three so that we can appoint them at our next meeting. So do you want me to give you that note? I will give you that note in a second. And then there's Conservation Commission. You don't have that one either, I bet.
Nope.
Okay. And we have two members, and we don't have any applications
We
for
did do
those
Conscom.
either.
Yeah, we did Conscom.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh, we did Conscom.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have made, because this is my last week, so, all right. There we go. All right. Cranberry Bog, did you have that one in your
Yes.
thing? Okay. I think we could reappoint that tonight.
All these people want to still
Yeah, well, they say they have an application on file, so that means that they're,
Yeah, no, Vibu definitely isn't. And
Who isn't?
Vibu, Walia.
Okay.
And I don't think Deb is.
Sylvia's.
And we're,
So sorry.
oh,
that's fine. But yeah, I know for a fact Vibu doesn't want to, but okay.
okay.
We can put him on, he can not come.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a different person from Conscom on. Alan, whoever we appointed to Conscom the last time.
Anchors?
Yeah.
No, Alan
No,
Anchors.
just trails.
No.
Yeah.
We do this one later.
Yeah, let's do
That's
this
all.
one. Let us get
Alec
this.
Parra.
Could you
That's
please check this one? And
Yeah, it's going to be different. Yeah.
what about John Lavery? He's been attending all your meetings.
Yeah,
Maybe
he went to the last one. I haven't seen him at any of the others.
He's attended 3 that I know of, but I don't know. Or he said he did. Okay.
Maybe.
Let's check on that one.
So we're not doing that tonight.
Reappoint the Cultural Council tonight.
I move that we appoint Jennifer Seidlin of Wolf Rock Road to a 3-year term of the Cultural Council to expire June 30th, 2020.
Second.
2022.
2022.
2022.
Yeah.
I said 2 in my mind.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So there's,
People that are going to be not allowed to be reappointed next year. You see the second term.
Are you looking at the
yes,
Deer Control
where is
or
there
Cultural Council?
1-year
Okay.
interval before serving? Oh, and then they, okay. All right. There is, by the way, another committee that has, that I was going to ask about term limits, but, okay. So this one's done, and we voted it. Okay. Council on Aging, we're still...
Did you skip Deer Control?
No, because this is again from last week.
Oh, okay.
And I'm asking, this is more for me to ask Jen why we don't have any letters, applications on file. There's a whole bunch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Normally gives me a memo. He didn't give me one this year, but he did come up and stand over.
And do we want to invite Carrie Kissinger, I guess is another question, to become a member of that? Because I think he would be a good member for this, for the Council on Aging.
I don't have the paper. Is there?
That we had it last week.
Is there space?
Yeah.
There's 9 members.
Oh, I see what you mean.
2, 4, 6, 8, 9. They have 9, and then they have 4 associates. You could go on it as an associate.
And of the 9,
Assuming all there
are 2 that are...
there are 3 that are regular members.
Abba.
Jerry Lerman, Abba Singhal, and Bob Luoma.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Do we
just
know
thinking...
if they all want to re-up?
Well, we don't.
David Klein said they did.
Oh,
Yeah.
they all want to
They've
re-up?
already met and organized.
Oh, okay. All right, well, never mind then. It was just an idea. I just thought he would,
So
it
do you
would
want
be a
us...
nice place to
sorry,
slot him in.
approve, do you want us to appoint those tonight, these 3? Or wait?
I think we
Get
need to wait
letters?
until we know that.
Okay.
It's always
And
nice to have a letter.
It is.
I want to have the letters.
Yeah. Okay, do you want me to give this back to you?
No, I want to give it to Jen so that she bugs them. Okay.
You can say, Kate made you do it.
Deer Control Committee, I was not planning on taking care of this tonight. I would like us to think about whether we want to change the name of this committee, if there are any other, first of all, we have also no, as far as I know, no letters or applications on file. So I think I'd like to hold this for next week, so when we have a little more time.
I think it would make
Talk
sense to,
about it?
I think I had emailed you about this. They would really like to get going so that they can start the process with the public. I asked them to hold off meeting until after we had the appointment.
Actually, I don't think I got that
There was
email.
an email that I said, kind of like a.
Oh, that one, okay.
These are the things that I promised people.
All right.
Well, they don't need to be reappointed because they've got another couple weeks on the.
Right, so, I mean, I guess what I would like is, what I was suggesting was that we meet jointly with them so that we can give them some direction, give them feedback on what we've heard and what we think from town meeting, so that when they get their first meeting, they've gotten that next direction from us. So,
Can we invite them then for our agenda of the 25th, and then we can appoint them at the same time?
yeah, and I had said that we were trying to do it in June, so.
Oh, yeah, well, there we go. At least still be in time. But
And Todd had reached out to me because are our liaison assignments done?
Actually, he sent us their
Okay.
letters.
Oh, we did?
Last week, right?
Yeah. Did you bring those?
That email's in there. He emailed you and I, didn't he?
Yes.
I don't know if we've got it in the packet.
Well, if we have the letters, then let's do the appointment tonight.
He did
Then
give the letter.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
He gave
I'm only
everything.
going, I can only go by what I have here, because I wasn't in that loop. Okay.
Before we do that, though, I have a question then, because Todd reached out to me thinking that we were appointing somebody from the BOS to be on this. Is that
To be
right?
determined. Yes.
Separate from me being the liaison?
Yeah, BOS has a full-time member on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Got it.
but if you're the
Do
liaison.
you want me to do both?
It is one and the same.
That's one and the same.
Okay. So I
we
do
will
need to be
appoint you-
appointed then.
Go to
Yes.
the meeting
Okay.
twice.
No, I'm happy to go.
And you
I
get two
just,
votes.
Todd was confused thinking.
Yes.
Okay, so I do need to be appointed.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
I
So,
move that the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint to the Deer Control Committee for a one-year term the following people: Todd Thorson, 301 Hanover Street; Alex Ppa, 31 Bellows Hill Road; Jonathan DeCock, 130 Oak Knoll Road; John Pajovanek, 93 Clark's Farm Road; John Keating, 133 Forest Park Road; Sergeant Scott Barnes of the Carlisle Police Department; and Barbara T. Arnold from the 225 Lowell Street as the Board of Selectmen representative. Terms to expire June 30th, 2020.
good work. Any more discussion? Second? Well, we had a second from Luke
okay.
already.
Sorry.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That is taken care of, but I do want to keep this on a future agenda, maybe when they come.
2 weeks from now.
2
yeah.
weeks from now, and we'll talk about whether they're a working group or a committee and what their charge is.
Yeah, well, I think unless Tim puts it together, it's a committee.
No, if the board appoints them.
Yeah.
It's a committee.
Okay.
We just made it a committee.
Well, it says the first thing in the Deer Control Committee says the working group will collect information, which is why I was questioning
Yeah,
what's.
I think the title, so it's just, we need to clean that up.
We need to clean this whole thing up.
So the Deer
Right.
Committee, it should be a working group?
No, it's a committee.
No, it's
It
a
is a
committee.
committee,
But
okay.
we need to clean the
So we don't
charge
call
up.
it the working group?
Yeah, the only other thing, though, is I thought the citizen at large was supposed to be a non-hunter.
Yeah, that's what I was
You know,
wondering.
I mean, I thought we had, and it's obviously, it's not in the charge itself, the charter itself, but I thought we had significant discussion about that.
Is John Keating a hunter? Are you telling me?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I will say that while I was running for the office of Board of Selectmen, that I had 4 or 5 different people who were not hunters, who were concerned about the way the pilot project went, that I think it would be a good idea just to have somebody representing a non-hunter officially on the committee. And I'd be happy to recruit someone, since I've been in conversation with 4 of them since then, if that makes sense. But that would mean we'd have to hold off.
We've already done it.
I know, we just did it. Or
Well,
could
we can always,
We can.
Or could we make this an 8-person?
Our discussion with them, we can talk about this, and if we want to, we can change the charter to be more members.
yeah, right,
We have the power.
we do.
So maybe we should just have the minutes,
well,
if you wouldn't mind, have the
yeah.
minutes show that we want to encourage the deer control.
Excuse me, but I don't see why it has to be the citizen at large that should not be the hunter. I mean, we have a Board of Health member who's Alex Ppa, I can guarantee you, is not a hunter. Jonathan DeCock, I doubt, is a hunter. So there's a bunch of non-hunters on there already. It's not like it's stacked with hunters. But we can have that discussion when they come.
Jerry's a non-hunter. Are you a non-hunter?
Technically, yes, but yes.
Okay.
I mean, being a non-hunter and being against hunting are two different things.
Right, I'm not against hunting. I know how
Okay.
to,
All right.
I don't have a firearm, I know how to bow hunt. I mean,
Yeah.
not bow hunt.
As do I,
you know,
but okay.
What do you call it, rifle hunt, but.
All right.
So the conclusion is we're going to, we have appointed these people, and we are going to then, in 2 weeks, have them, some portion of them come
Right.
and talk with us about the future of the committee. Okay,
Okay.
great.
On the Finance Committee, Jen, the charge is not correct because it still says members may hold no other elective or appointed town positions involving expenditure of town money during their terms of office. So that's from the old bylaw, and I don't have a copy. We'd like to get...
Changed, yeah.
It got changed. All right. Let us put this aside because I see our guest is here, and I'd love
I
to...
realized I left my notes in the car, though.
Oh, you want to go out and get them? We
I'm
have.
so sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay.
I will be right
No
back.
problem. We have.
I usually use just this, but I actually
That's okay.
messed up.
All right.
I apologize.
And what I'm also going to ask you, Jen, to do is, as we did on the Cultural Council, where there's a term limit or number of term limits, there is a number of 3 consecutive terms that FinCom members should not serve, and I have no idea where anybody is on this. So before I'd like to hold this one off till the 25th as well.
Find out whether there's anybody who's term limiting out.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why Jerry got turned out.
Yeah, I know one member who left town, so we've got his term, but I don't know if there are anybody else.
They're interviewing a candidate tonight, so perhaps by next time.
Yeah, which is fine, but in the meantime, I would also like, Jen, if you could add the info about who's got what term. And here's your
3 consecutive.
notes on those 2 committees.
3 consecutive terms,
Okay.
so Jerry could come back.
I'd like to appoint the Historical Commission tonight.
I move the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term Jeffrey Freeman of 245 Rockland Road and Kathleen Keller of 14 Westford Street to terms to expire June 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. This one's all 3-year terms, and for some reason, all the terms coincide on the same year. This is also something I'd like to see if we could sort out, but we don't have to do any appointing this week, but I'd like to kind of get those staggered a little, so figure out
I can ask, I've sent out an email to ask him.
land stewardship has, we have one. Can we do land stewardship? and then we'll
So this is
stop.
a new person. I move that the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint to the Land Stewardship Committee Rhonda Michaud of 50 Hart Farm Road for a term of 3 years to expire June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's also unanimous. Welcome again. Why don't you come and have a seat at our table? And
I don't think she lives in Lynn.
can we turn one of these mics?
Yep, you can have mine.
Excellent, thank you.
That's Lynn.
These don't amplify. They,
For the,
For the TV.
great.
Our huge audience that are watching us.
Good to
Hey.
see you again.
No, it's good to see you. How is everybody?
Good.
Good?
Very good.
Good, excellent.
Enjoying your new office.
Great.
Great.
Yes. Yes. So my understanding is you'd like some updates. I can give you some sort of high-level updates. And I meant to call you. We have to talk. I'm so excited. I'm Tammy Govea, State Representative for 14th Middlesex, for those who are listening. And my understanding is you wanted an update from me on kind of what's been happening up at the State House. And then I think there were some very specific questions about some progress that we're trying to help the town make with particular issues. So if there are other things that you wanted me to talk about, please let me know or interrupt me, or we can address that at the end. Does that sound fair? Okay. So, as you know, I was sworn in on January 2nd of this year, and it's been a very busy session up at the State House, which I'm finding great joy in. The last legislative session, the House took up one bill and then didn't really take up any bills for another 8 or 9 months. This session, we've already voted on a number of bills, really important bills, which is really great. Banning conversion therapy, lifting the cap on kids. We'll be voting on some other things tomorrow as well. And we have a constitutional convention on the millionaire's tax tomorrow. It's the second day of the millionaire's tax for the constitutional convention. So things are moving along. As you probably possibly know, there are over 6,000 bills that get filed every single session. By Massachusetts Constitution, every single bill gets a hearing in a primary committee. I'm on 4 different committees. Most of my committees have had at least some hearings. Some have had multiple hearings. And the 4th committee is just starting to do listening sessions. And those 4 committees that I sit on are export development, which doesn't have a whole lot of bills that adhere. So it's a little bit more of a quiet committee compared to children, families, and persons with disabilities. So I sit on that committee. It's had a number of hearings, multiple bills that it's heard. The 3rd committee that I sit on is mental health, substance use, and recovery. So that's the one that's going out and doing listening sessions. It hasn't had any formal hearings yet. And then the 4th is consumer protection and professional licensure. So a lot of the local liquor, home rules go to that committee. Anything that sort of impacts consumer protection and alcohol licenses and professional licensure across the board. And that's also had a number of hearings. I filed 19 pieces of legislation and co-sponsored over 300. And the way I made my decision around which bills I would co-sponsor had to do, first I prioritized what constituents asked me to co-sponsor. So that was my first pass. And then the second pass was advocacy organizations that reached out and said, we'd really like you to support this bill. And what it means for me as a co-sponsor is all of those bills, I will at the very least write a letter of support indicating why I support that particular piece of legislation. And if I can go in person, I will go in person. Some days up at the State House, there are 5 hearings that are happening at the same exact time, and even people who are on those committees have to juggle going from one committee hearing to another, so it's not always physically possible to be able to present, and make a case for particular bills. So that's sort of the high level. I spend 4 days in the district and try to only spend 3 days up at the State House. I really feel it's important for me to stay connected to the constituents in the 14th Middlesex. I have office hours, try to do them twice a week. Sometimes we have to change the schedule depending on other conflicts that I have in meetings, but typically I'm in Carlisle every other Friday morning at Ferns from 7 to 9:30, 7 to 9, depends on. The one in Carlisle, to be quite honest, is the one I get probably the most people to, average about 9 people, and people come from all over the district. It's not just Carlisle residents, so it's really quite fun, to be honest. And then I have them also on the alternating Friday morning in Chelmsford at their town hall, and then in Concord and Acton on Monday nights. So that's the way I try to stay in touch. I'm also, we have a newsletter. We keep my website up to date. I have a calendar on my website which says what meetings I'll be in and where I'll, sort of be when I'm in the district, so that people can try to track me. And for those of you who are on social media, I'm very active. I sort of use social media as a way to talk about that's okay. Sort of the day-to-day interactions that I have with constituents, things I'm learning. If I go for a site visit or a tour of schools or a tour of an organization, I talk about and amplify what's going on in those organizations. And I also, in chambers, when we're voting and taking votes, or even within within committees, I will, post what we're taking up in terms of issues and how we're voting as a way to try to increase transparency and access to what's going on up at the State House. And I've gotten feedback that people really like that they find that it's a useful way to sort of feel like they're a little bit more conversant in what's going on up at the State House, because other than that, it can be a black box. And then the other thing that I've started to do is every Monday morning I record what I'm going to be doing for that next week, when my office hours are, the kinds of meetings I'll be going to, just so people have a sense of, well, what is it really like as a state rep? What are the kinds of things and issues and organizations that we're visiting, and what are some of the issues that we're taking up, so people can really understand what's happening with that. So that's sort of what goes on in a nutshell as state rep. But I would love to hear what questions you have, what concerns you have, and kind of go from there.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the board. Luke?
Oh, I don't know.
Besides, where's my next meal?
Exactly.
I thought you were doing that when I said social media, which sometimes I feel that way as well. So,
well, Tammy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on where things are around the changing of the education formula, and what that might mean for Carlisle. I attended the Mass Municipal Association session for new board members on Saturday, and is it Lewis, Senator Lewis?
Yes. He's the Senate chair, yes.
Yeah, Senate chair on this committee. So he was making it sound like he thought that there would actually be an agreement and a vote this year.
Yes, absolutely.
Would be phenomenal, since it's been under discussion for I don't know how many years. So what's your take on that? Yeah,
that's the same thing that I'm hearing, that we will have a vote on the education bill. We're hearing that it could come out in the next couple of weeks even. If not, for the most part, the House doesn't usually meet in August, so then we're talking September. I think it would be great if we could take that issue up and vote on it in June or July. I think it also has pretty important implications for the budget, which is the other reason why it needs to be taken up if we really want to try to pass a budget by July, which is usually the goal. So that's what I'm hearing, is that we should anticipate a bill around that. I think the question is what's in that bill and how does it impact, various communities, whether you're a Springfield or a Lowell, or you're a Carlisle or a Chelmsford or a Duxbury or a Drake. So I don't know what those numbers look look like because we haven't seen anything yet, and nothing's been leaked to us or anything like that. So I am curious to see how they address some of the issues that I think became sticking points in the last session, which were around the low-income aspect and the English language learner. That was my understanding from Chairwoman Peisch. When I first came on board as a state rep, I had a meeting with her to understand, what were the sticking points around this, because I know people in the 14th Middlesex really do care about what's happening with this funding formula. And one of the things she said to me is that, they spent a lot of time focused on special education and healthcare, and that left less room and less time to really, I think, come up with what would work for multiple communities around the ELL and the low income. So I think there is an intentionality to really focus on that, and a lot of state reps are talking about just how important that aspect is, even in communities like ours. Like in Acton alone, we have 20-25% are low income. You wouldn't necessarily think that, but the numbers are higher than people would think. The incoming, the current kindergarten class speaks 25 primary languages other than English. So there really is a need. I don't know what the numbers are in Concord, Carlisle. I haven't looked at those, but just as a parent in Acton, I hear some of these things a little bit more. So it's just really important for us to make sure we get that funding formula as right as possible. Of course, there are going to be some negotiations, and it will go through legislation and all of that. But I think it's really important for Senator Lewis. I think it's important that he has said that it seems like they're getting close to an agreement, because the House and the Senate tend to take a little bit of time to come to the same page on a variety of issues, not just education. And that's typical in houses of government all across the country.
Because the ELL, for us, the problem is SPED.
It's SPED, yeah.
And we get some pretty involved cases coming here, and they choose us deliberately.
Got it.
And
we have a really good department here.
And so then it kind of ends up being an unfunded mandate for us.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah, well, and to a certain extent, I don't know what the conversation is here necessarily. I hear about it a little bit more in Acton, Boxborough, but around regional transportation as well. And I advocated a lot for that in the budget process. We couldn't advocate for that around the education formula in the budget process because we know there's a separate bill coming out. But wherever we can really advocate to make sure that we're not that we don't continue with unfunded mandates, I think is really important. And there were a number of people who really spoke to and were able to get I think a small increase in the regional transportation budget, because the auditor did a study and found that, the state's not really ponying up the amount of money that it's supposed to and that it promised that it would. So.
And so does it have to go, is it a two-part process where first of all this joint committee has to agree on the change in the formula, and then it has to get passed by the legislature, but then at the same time, is there a separate budget approval that needs to happen to actually fund?
It would be an appropriation, yeah. So that would have to happen as well.
The income, the revenue for 2020? Is the expectation that this will affect 2020?
So the revenue discussion will be a completely separate discussion later in the session, which would it would not impact the FY20 budget. The earliest it would affect it is the FY21, and even that I think would be maybe optimistic. I know there is some interest both from the governor and from the Speaker of the House to raise revenue, and then on the Senate side they have a working group that's focused on revenue as well. I think it will take a lot of work to get people to come to agreement around what those revenue measures look like and what's the goal of the revenue. Is the goal to raise money for transportation and education, which we know is really where we've been really underfunding, or is the goal to address climate change, which is also a real major issue, and that's where the governor's revenue has really been more focused. The Speaker of the House and his Greenworks piece of legislation for climate change has focused on bond bills to raise money for that. So I think there's different approaches, and I don't know where we will land. So that's almost like a separate piece. So they're going to need to find money. I think the question you're asking is, where is this money going to come from? They're going to we are, I'm not always used to saying we are going to need to find the money in current revenue that we generate. The millionaire's tax eventually, once it passes the legislature 2 sessions in a row, and if it passes at the ballot, then, that's not even going to go into effect for another 4 years at the earliest. And that has projections that it would, raise the money to really support the funding and the transportation needs that we have. And I mean, let's be honest, we had 2 T derailments in just a couple days, and I hear over and over and over again about how inadequate the frequency of the train is. And I know that in Carlisle, you don't even have access to any of this stuff, and that there's, some desire and need to be creative and some smaller vans and local transport and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important for us to just keep focused on these issues.
Did you have anything? I think mine was more of a request or just to voice a concern is, as we're talking about the new legislation and you've been talking about the unfunded mandates, I think one of the things that Carlisle is facing, it's something we've faced ever since we first came into existence. It was, do we have enough to be a town? Do we not have enough to be a town? We're a town, we're not a town, we're a town, we're not a town. Finally, we were a town. But we don't have any services in town that would draw any kind of business. There's just nothing here that is going to make business come in and say, oh, well, they can get lunch here. Okay, I guess we have ferns.
Yeah.
And because of that,
I love ferns.
We're pretty much, it's just residential.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's just the property tax that allows us to afford this. And we find it, we place education very, very high. But what that means is it's 75% of our budget.
Right.
And, when you throw everything in there. And so what we're becoming is a bit of a town of people move into town just because they want to send their kids to the school, and we're spending all this money on the schools, and then they move out. Yet we still have all these things that were decided, and it's driving the older population out of town because they can't afford the taxes anymore.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times Carlisle is just seen as this rich town that can afford it. But we don't want to be a town that's driving other people, fixed income people out.
Right.
Because other people can afford it. And so this is just the balance. It's the balance that we on the Board of Selectmen have all the time, is when we're putting our budget together, is how do we do it so we are not driving people out of town?
Right.
And so all of these things the state is putting together, yes, there are the Lowells, there are the Bostons, but there's other towns that may be a different makeup that also have kind of a unique need that need to be considered in order for us to maintain our character.
Right.
We absolutely could just keep attracting rich people and with families, and but is that what we want to be? Is just a town that has people that are just flowing through it and have no cultural background, no connection, no community.
Right.
And that's what I'm afraid we're going to become with our current. At the current rate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a very real issue. I think a lot of rural areas in general face that. And I know, is he still here? You're still here. David Klein is still here. Back in, February, we met at office hours to look at strategic ways that the state can help alleviate the tax burden on the aging population in particular, because this is obviously becoming an issue, not just in Carlisle, although I do imagine that it's exacerbated here compared to other communities because of the tax base issue. And that's a real challenge. And then just what are the kinds of housing options that would allow someone to, maybe they can't stay in their own home here in Carlisle, and maybe it doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons, the size of the house, the structure of the house, et cetera, but are there other ways that they can stay in the town? And those are different challenges. Those are different challenges.
It's not that you're still forcing them out of their home. You're still forcing them out of the home that they raised their kids in. And so,
That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm just saying is having more options so they can stay in Carlisle. They may choose to leave their, 1,800, 2,000 square foot home because they don't need to heat it. They don't have the capacity to maintain the cleaning that it's required or the maintenance that's required, but they still want to stay in town. So what are the options that they can move to? That's what I'm talking, if they want to. I'm not saying push people out of their home. That's not what I'm getting at. No, I think it's really, you do need both.
I'm in favor of trying to figure out, are there ways that we can reduce the taxes of certain people, either of certain income and everything. What I worry a little bit about, though, is does that just move the tax to the other people in town and therefore change the makeup for other people? It's kind of like, I don't want to move that bar so that now you're impacting other people because you've just made it unaffordable for them. So it's just something you really...
It's the balancing.
Balance. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing.
Right.
You need to worry about the impact of what you're doing here. Now we just increased the number of people that are having a hard time.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's an easy problem.
Oh, it's totally easy, I know. Exactly.
I think
it's a fair question.
I focus a lot on 40B. And it's a one-size-fit-all type of law.
Yeah.
It does not fit all the communities, and it fits us particularly badly. It's threat only. It's another one of those unfunded mandates. Like, you have to do this, and it has to, it's on your dime.
Right.
And I think just as a badly written law, because if the people buy into this thing, if they're buying them rather than renting, they cannot increase the equity of their house. So now they're stuck.
Yeah.
And they're much better off buying a cheap house in a bad community, honestly, and get the starter house so that they can sell it and move somewhere else. Because if they buy a subsidized house, they're going to be stuck in that subsidized house for the rest of their lives. And I think just that's a nasty law.
Yeah.
It's a Latin, just nasty.
Yeah.
It's also particularly bad. We ran into this. We ran into this in a recent one where it actually ended up being bad for the developer. But every time something like that comes in, we really have to push on it. And it's not that we're fighting the 40B. We have to protect the health and safety of the neighbors.
Right.
And so with only having private water and sewer, if you're putting in something big, it costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars each time something comes in.
Right.
But we have to do it because we have to protect the neighbors.
Right.
In the past, we have demonstrated how it was going to contaminate the wells.
Right.
And therefore restructured things. But it's just, I think it's different if you have public water and public sewer, then you can do higher density.
Right.
We don't.
Right.
We have 2-acre zoning, but we have 2-acre zoning. It's not snob zoning. You need to have a well and a septic, and what happens if one fails?
Right.
You need to have some other place.
And we have wetlands.
So what alternatives would you offer? Because we have, as a state, we are 160 to 180,000 units short of 160,000 to 180,000 units short of what we need to house everybody in the state. And it becomes a real burden for some of our gateway communities to constantly be carrying that, which is why I think the whole point of 40B was put into place as a way to carrot and stick simultaneously with some communities.
I work here. We have no transportation.
I understand that.
In Concord, where they can hop on a bus.
But even in Concord, it's
hop on a train.
Right.
And have access to work.
Right.
We don't even have that.
So I still go back to my question, though, like what would you offer as an alternative?
You can't do anything on a large scale, right? The 40B is about like a 10% thing.
Right.
Things that we've talked about are, if there's a development, is there a way that we could potentially buy one of them down, and that would add a unit in town, or maybe it would add 2 units in town. We're just not going to get to 10%.
No, but I have an answer for her.
And I have an idea, so I'm asking first, but I do have an idea, so.
First of all, we have a decreasing population in our schools, and so we have excess capacity. So we could take in children that are not getting as good an education in and of their town. town into our schools.
Okay.
Which would increase the diversity in our school as well.
Right, and the state provides a certain amount of funding per student that comes in. This is like a school choice you're talking about.
Well,
like,
I'm
but maybe-
saying...
That doesn't help with housing
Not
aspect.
even- I mean, I'm saying that this would be our contribution.
I think we'd have to really
But I'm just,
figure it out.
that's an idea. It's
What's your
not
idea?
as...
Well, my idea, and I have no idea how this would work or how, if it's even feasible, but in talking to Carlisle residents during the campaign, one of the ideas that I came up with was, you know, does Carlisle pay into a fund that then allows the building of housing somewhere else? Right? And I know that that sounds crazy because it's like we're going to pay money to build housing somewhere else. But I think the whole point of 40B and looking at trying to create some baseline of equity that everybody carries, you know, what kind of comes along with affordable housing, that's really shared across the whole Commonwealth. That's really the point of it. So I don't know what other ideas there would be, but I would be really curious. It's almost like those pollution tax. Yeah, it is like a carbon tax. I mean, it really is that kind of idea.
About the optics.
Of course. That's why I said I don't even know if I really want to say this, right? Of course. But at the same time...
It costs $450,000 to start, and it hasn't even been improved. So that already, right off the bat, makes it unaffordable. So if we could buy land in another town and build it,
right,
you know.
And there are some agreements that happen between multiple communities, like in Maynard and Acton and maybe even Stowe. And I don't know what those agreements are, but they each get like a certain, even though it might be cited in one particular community primarily, I think everybody sort of gets a little bit of credit. And I don't know how that works. I'm not a housing expert by any stretch, but...
We even had part of town that had public water that then got taken away because they were the people over on River Road were connected to Concord for a while, for a very long while, and Concord just cut them off. Now they had to go. They had to put in their own wells.
When did that happen?
About a year ago.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, there were about 5 houses on River Road that were connected.
I guess my desire is to try to be creative and trying to find what options we could create, because I agree that there are ways that, you know, with state law, we're trying to create equity. And I think that's really, really important. And we don't want to lose sight of that. And it also is challenging when it comes to, then it creates sort of this cookie cutter approach that doesn't really work for everybody. And I see it with a couple other different pieces of legislation as well, that it might make sense to just see if there's ways to be a little bit creative and, you know, throw things out and see what works.
We have to get past that optics of, well, we'll actually pay to put it in somebody else's backyard.
Well, the way you
but I
do
think
that
if, you know, there's lots of things like, you know, we'd have to figure out, does that take off the pressure of 40B developments? And, you know, because, you know, there's lots. I mean, I think we've even mentioned it before. Well, what if we plot land somewhere else where there is public water?
Where there is, right.
It's the lack of public water that's a problem. But if we start putting in public water for these, then we have to provide it to everybody. And that is a massive cost to the town.
Yeah.
And there's just no way we can afford that because we're already spending 75% of our, you know, with benefits, health benefits, on our education.
How does 40B work right now in a town that doesn't have public water and doesn't have sewer? How does that?
They have to build a private well.
They have to do all of that.
And they have to show, and we need to hire engineers to see if it's going to impact. That is one of the, that's the sticking point.
Right.
In a big enough complex, they have to put in a sewage treatment plant.
Right. So do you have one that has that or no? No. Okay. All right. You haven't quite gotten to that. Yeah.
Benfield has that, doesn't it?
No, they have a high capacity septic system,
Okay.
which doesn't work.
Which doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like all the projects that have happened in Carlisle have been heavily subsidized. Well, only one, I guess, was not. But all the other ones were heavily subsidized by the town because it's just not economical.
Yeah.
Do you talk to other towns like Carlisle and how they contend with this issue as well? I'm just curious, like through MMA or anywhere else?
Yeah, at the MMA.
Yeah. I mean, what comes up there in terms of their ideas?
To us, and,
They're very different. I mean, they have the point. It's not even close. It's not even close.
Concord is not even close. Our surrounding neighborhoods
they're not close.
are just not close.
No.
So you have to go to Bolton or,
And what do they talk about
even
there?
that close because they're on 495.
Do you go out to like the Blackstone Valley area? Have you ever connected with any of those folks? That's probably who you're more
We don't leave Carlisle.
like.
Kind of comments.
I don't blame you. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. I'm sorry I can't solve it right now or give you answers, but yeah.
Voice my concern.
Yeah, no, it's a fair concern. Do you have other questions?
Let me hit the hard ones.
Yeah.
And the hard ones.
Yeah.
So are you wearing Barney's name tag on purpose?
We're just playing a joke.
Okay. I did notice. Okay.
Caught her eye.
I was like,
Question for you about the professional licensure. Does that cover like childcare workers, teachers?
Yes.
It does. So
I don't know if it would, so it depends, because sometimes things would go to education or maybe children and families. It depends. And it's up to the clerk of either the House or the Senate where the bill was filed to decide which committee it goes to.
Yeah.
But if it affects like licensing requirements or expectations or credentialing, it comes to the committee I'm on.
QRIS, the requirements that now the state imposes, they always have, but they've upped them on childcare, daycare workers, preschool.
Don't know if I've heard of this yet.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this covers it. Well, I'll just say there's only one, I think, here in town anymore, somebody that does childcare. But the state has imposed these requirements about qualifications, and but they've not provided any money.
Right.
And so you have people working in the childcare field who themselves
have to pay
getting public assistance because they aren't making enough as a childcare worker, and yet they're being asked to go and get professional development to eventually they want them all to have four-year college degrees.
Oh my gosh.
And to pay for that, there's no way they can afford to do it on the salaries they're getting.
No, of course. Okay.
I don't know if that covers. That's covered
If
under
there's
this committee you serve on, or whether that ends up being in education, but it's a significant problem.
I guess the question is that driven by any particular reason, or is those schools of education that are trying to recruit more students? Because
No.
It's
About trying to make our early education programs of higher quality. And it may not, in Carlisle, I think it's not as important, obviously, because typically they're coming from families that can afford to give lots of opportunities to their children. But nevertheless, it affects the child care workers in Carlisle because it's a state requirement, these qualifications.
Right.
So, and the other thing that's happening is that those child care folks, if they do actually get the bachelor's, they're going to go into the public school system because they make a much bigger salary.
Right.
So they're having a lot of trouble retaining child care.
Then they'll get a pension that goes along with it, too, or like long-term benefits. Yeah. Okay. I'll keep an eye on that. I don't know if is there a particular bill that's coming up around that?
Yeah, let me just send you
if there is a bill that, yes. Okay, great.
Things right now.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else?
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to turn this back over.
Thank you for all your efforts.
Yeah. And we'll see you at Ferns
See you on one of those Fridays.
Good to have you.
Yeah, we're working on some of the Greenboro stuff.
Greeno Barn. Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And the DHCD. And
Yes, and the DHCD, yes. So the... Go back to this.
So for the DHCD, the undersecretary was on leave and is coming back this month, and so we expect to hear back from them. They have never had this, as you know, before, so they don't know what to do, and so they're trying to figure that out before they have a meeting with anybody from Carlisle. They want to have their ducks in a row and not waste anybody's time. So that's what's kind of going on. It's because that undersecretary has been on leave for, I think, 3 months for family leave.
So we should just kind of stand pat until all this.
Yeah, and my aide, Emily Odgers, is, on top of it and connecting with them, and yes, that's what's happening there. And then
Should the housing authority that was voted in, should they be meeting? Should they be sworn in? Because there was an election.
Yeah.
Anyway, right? Even though the town voted to disband it, there was an election.
There was still an election.
There were 3 people. There had to be, right? Because it had to be on the ballot in case.
They weren't on the ballot.
No, they were write-ins.
They were write-ins.
They were write-ins.
Yeah, but that still means they got elected.
They're still elected.
Yes.
They were listed.
do they have an official charge? I mean, does the charge need to be, if there is one, does it need to be approved at the state? Is that part of the question?
No, I mean, we have a housing authority. And
They exist until they're dissolved. Right?
and so the town voted to dissolve it, but as we understand it, it can't be dissolved until the state says, yes, we approve the solution.
Yeah. The town, the housing authority that we appointed voted to dissolve themselves. Town meeting
Dissolved.
ratified the dissolution. We had then an election with nobody listed as candidates for housing authority. 3 people were written in for housing authority, so we now actually have legitimately voted in housing authority again, even though it's been dissolved. So the question is it is or is it ain't?
Has anybody asked Emily to check in with, or have you checked in with them to see if you should be meeting? Because I would guess no, I guess.
No, I think council's opinion is that they can either meet or not. It doesn't,
Okay.
If we're going to have a meeting with DHCD in the reasonably near future.
Yeah, I think it's fine to wait. Yeah.
Okay. To revote to.
You all have interesting questions, I will say. I love it. It's great. I learn a lot.
Hey, Tammy, I want to... Yes, yeah.
Notice.
Tammy, I've got one last thing to ask you, and maybe I'm out of place here because I'm the newbie on the Board of Selectmen, but are there things that we should be doing as a board?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, okay. Are there things we should be doing as a board in terms of advocacy around particular issues that are before the legislature? And do you have communication with, would you be in touch with any of us? Or, I mean, I don't know how that would even work, or whether there's been a relationship in the past. I don't know how it worked with Quarry Atkins.
Do you have a sense of how it worked with Quarry?
If there was no relationship.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
So we've been in touch with them.
I like Quarry.
A number of times. So it's-
Yeah, and we've met. We celebrated complete streets. I think the way to find out a lot of what I'm doing and what's going on is to sign up for my newsletter. I know that sounds like a little bit of self-advertising, but it really is the way that you will know where I'm going to be, what events I'm attending, what issues are coming up. And, just reach out at any point. I love this opportunity to come and talk to you. You're the first select board to invite me to do that, which is really exciting. I've been waiting to sort of get my ducks in a row up at the State House and really get sort of settled in before I start doing a lot of these. But I'm really happy that I was invited to come. And we can continue to meet on a regular basis and connect around whatever issues where we can be helpful, where we can grease the wheels a little bit, like particularly with getting money released for the bond bills. Those are always challenging, and it's really the role of the state rep to really try to advocate on behalf of the town to get that money released and going. It doesn't mean that we're the sort of the straw that breaks their camel's back to get that to happen, but it's one of the roles that we play. And I would also say for, people who might be listening that really there are two primary roles of a state representative: to help pass laws and to help constituents in the town. And we've helped a number of constituents in Carlisle already, with access to mass health and trying to navigate some of those challenging systems and bureaucracy at the state level. So we encourage anybody to reach out on those. And my email address is Tammy, T-A-M-I, .Gouvea, G-O-U-V-E-I-A, at mahouse.gov. And I'll say it again, T-A-M-I, .Gouvea, at mahouse.gov. And yes, I have all the vowels in my name. And my middle name is Lynn, so sometimes why. I like to have fun too.
Very cute.
Thank you, Tammy.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, thanks, Tammy.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
No, thank you very much.
Great. Wow.
Got it orange.
Hi, David.
Hi, David.
Hi and bye. Or if you're staying, we'd...
Missed community input, so too late.
Yeah, I did miss it. No, I've met with her a couple times, so
That's great.
So nice to have
I'm
you.
actually walking out the door when she walked in. I figured, well, I'll walk in too.
Do we want to finish
Yes,
this?
I would like to
have a
finish
state
our
rep who actually
appointments.
does
Yeah.
We're so close to being done.
Okay.
Okay, we're at the Municipal Facilities Committee.
I thought we were
We did
long-term cap?
in land stewardship.
Oh, sorry, long-term cap.
Land stewardship, we did.
We did
land
that.
stewardship,
Okay,
yes.
good.
But long-term
Long-term caps.
I hear you.
So I must have been filling somebody else's slot because my appointment to long-term caps expires this year. And also, my address is Carlton, not Charlton. There's no H in it. And I guess I'm the Board of Selectmen candidate. Is anybody interested in going to long-term caps? Leaving me on long-term caps?
How often do they meet? If you don't want to do
3 times a week.
Oh, God. Just gonna go back here, eat my orange.
Okay. I'm certainly willing
Yeah,
to
how
stay on
often
it.
do they meet?
And I have to say, it's because am I still on, okay.
You're the liaison.
I'm also, huh?
I'll be on long.
You want to do long-term caps? Sure. Okay. So we need to,
Where's your letter?
yeah. Nathan?
Can I have my pen back?
Okay, and we have a new, what happened to her? Okay, Sarah, what's her?
Wilson?
Wilson.
Oh, it's going to be the school committee
Will be
rep?
the school,
Good. That was my question
Will be the
here.
school committee rep.
Okay.
Okay, so we need
A
to
motion?
appoint Nathan and Sarah.
Does anybody know Sarah's address? Oh, it's Grant Wilson's. That's Grant Wilson's daughter.
Oh.
Whatever what's the name of that street? No.
Is it Clark Farm Road?
Yeah, Clark Farm.
Yeah, Clark Farm Road, I think, right?
And I'm 153 Virginia Farm Lane.
Okay. Do you want me to do it? I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint to the Long-Term Capital Committee for a term of 3 years, Nathan Brown of
153 Virginia Farm Lane.
153 Virginia Farm Lane, and Sarah Wilson of Clark Farm Road, for a term to expire at the end of June 2022.
Second.
The school one is 2021.
2021, yes, because she's
right,
just
just
taking Josh's.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. Okay, because Josh is gone.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, so do you want me to, can you just change that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
2022 one.
Nathan's 2022 and she's 2021. Okay. Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we have the Municipal Facilities Committee.
And again, I took somebody's slot, I guess. Yours. So I either have to be reappointed or we have to find some other sucker to take this.
This is one that you wanted, right?
Yeah, I think I want to stay on this one because, it is some advantage to having some history on this and not have to sort of learn it all from scratch. So, and there's a lot of overlap, by the way, between this and long-term caps. So, but anyway.
If you want to be on long-term caps, you're welcome to.
No, I think it's healthy to have it be this way. Okay.
More than one person.
Yeah.
Yeah, know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means since two of these are vacant.
Yes.
And do we have anybody interested? No, we don't.
Okay.
Well, we have the two non-voting.
Please reappoint me so that I can get sworn in so I can continue to help with the quorum until we get some other people. I think that's important.
I move that the Carlisle Board of Selectmen appoint Kate Mead as the Board of Selectmen representative to the Municipal Facilities Committee to a term to expire 2022.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we'll talk about, and then we have to talk about a bunch of things. Pathways 2 is going to become complete streets, no? Yes?
So I don't know. I think
Be a representative on.
yeah, there should be a pathways rep on complete streets.
Okay, there's still going to be
still going to be its own.
two separate things.
What is their charge at this point? Because they were to present how the remaining funds might be spent.
So the next phase that
Propose
they're
another phase, which they've done.
right, yeah. So basically the next phase that they're looking at is the extension from basically Kimball's down to not necessarily River. Well, I guess it's River Road, right?
Which is likely only to
It's gonna be
happen
even
if
further.
we get the developer to help support it.
Well, there's the portion from Dan Gainsborough, and then there's also a grant application that would be going in. So I spoke with Melinda, was it yesterday? Day before?
And this is not part of Complete Streets?
No, it's a different application.
Right.
So that application is due August 9th. So we got to get kind of rolling on that.
Okay, so let's reappoint Pathways tonight.
Oh, yes.
And we won't worry about the extra vacancy
All
until.
those people want to still be on?
That's true, do we?
Well, they're not on the list of people who don't.
So, yeah. but I was talking with Melinda, and I don't think Stacy and Nancy want to be on it. So maybe we should get an update we can get an updated list from Melinda. I mean, ultimately, I don't think they're going to meet before our next meeting.
So do you want to hold this till the next
We're
meeting?
going to hold
Is that
this.
what you're
Yeah.
thinking? Okay.
And then, Jen, that's your.
When you said, you mean Sandy Nash is saying she may not want to do it?
Yeah, I believe Melinda said both Sandy and Nancy didn't want to be on it anymore, and then Deb moved out of town.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would just leave Melinda and Pete.
So you're going to, a couple working together on it.
Yeah.
Are you going
Well,
to?
they may or they may not.
That's why I was wondering if they shouldn't just be rolled into Complete Streets.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, we could consider that.
I
We
mean,
could
Complete
certainly
Streets
consider
have paths on them and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
but that'll go away as soon as the grant's up.
that. Right, yeah, the idea with
Yeah.
Complete Streets is that implementation, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to,
Well, but
design it. I mean, you can.
We
yeah,
can
they
always change that. I mean, we haven't seen the draft of that yet, have we, of what the Complete Streets is going to look like?
That's in.
Yeah, I sent it.
That's in our packet.
Yeah.
The bid for the
Not the bid, I'm talking about the committee.
Committee
Yeah.
charge, yes.
Yeah, I sent it the other day.
Oh, that's in there? Okay. I missed it then.
So Luke, are you trying to recruit some new people for this?
So I think, I think I'd actually like to be on Pathways. And yeah, speaking with Melinda, I think we definitely have to get some new people. So she had a couple people in mind. I have a couple people in mind. So yeah, I can reach out to some folks and we can see, hopefully, we can get a couple of spots filled.
So when you say you want to be on it, do you want to be appointed to it, or?
Yeah, not necessarily tonight, but.
Oh.
But yeah,
Okay.
we don't have a Board of Selectmen rep, but.
Yeah.
What's that?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to wait on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recreation Commission, first of all, the positions to be filled is, it should say one member with the term expiring June 30th, 2019, right? Andrew McMorrow, and it doesn't say that we have an application on file. But he did. Okay, so can we please appoint that?
I move that we appoint Andrew McMurrow of 250 Acton Street to the Recreation Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All the members on the Senior Tax Advisory Committee, of those members, both Barbara Calkins and Walter Hickman are willing to stay on the Senior Tax Advisory, and then the others are all staff. So we could just go ahead and reappoint the whole thing.
Yep.
I move that we appoint Bonnie Fleck, Treasurer's Tax Collector, Melissa Stamp, Assessor's Office, David Klein, COA Director, Angela Smith, a resident in the COA Assistant Director, 158 Martin Street, Barbara Calkins, 9 Bedford Road, and Walter Hickman, 249 Concord Street, to the Senior Tax Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year to expire June 30th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That's, again, done. I think we can appoint the Trails Committee tonight. We have 2 members. His term's expired.
Now, why is Steve Tobin down here as an, oh, 2 of them, sorry. Yeah, I move that.
Wait, isn't he one that didn't want to be on anymore?
Oh, let's see, where's that list?
He didn't want to be on the Deer Committee anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint to the Trails Committee Steve Tobin of 164 Partridge Lane and Alan Ankers of 83 Pheasant Hill Lane for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Veterans Committee could be appointed tonight.
Like they all expire.
Yes, all 1 year.
But there's only one applicant?
That one's actually crossed out.
2.
Mine only has Christopher Eisenbees. Oh, I've got
Greg Fairbank
a whole
is on.
different
There
thing.
was an update that was on your,
Oh, in here.
yeah. You
Gotcha.
can get your binder early.
Gotcha, okay.
Oh,
Don't worry,
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
Got it.
all right. So here.
Oh, all right. I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint to the Veterans Committee Christopher Eisenbees, 420 Heald Road, Greg Fairbank, 102 Captain Wilson Lane, and Tim Nickerson, 1177 Curve Street, for the period of 1 year to expire June 30th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
Nobody doing it.
That's a good reason.
Nothing to do on the next. Nothing to do on the next. We are done, except for the ones that we didn't do. But that's not
Hey,
very many.
that's good, though. Great.
Okay. Now, we are at our
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, not too bad, it's 9:07. Update about Selectmen's Policy Number 5 of
Can I suggest an alternate way of doing this? Would it make sense for us to, at the next meeting, go through what all the policies are and assign them to different people, and those people can go and talk to people and make edits to them and bring back proposed edits rather than editing them in a Board of Selectmen meeting?
I'd like to talk about them before we assign them, because some of them, maybe we just need to toss, and we don't need to have somebody do a lot of work. So you, for instance, have already volunteered to take the Policy 5 transfer station stickers.
Yep.
But I still think, really, the Board of Select, you have to get some basic information, but it has to come back to this board to discuss about, are we going to raise the sticker? Are we going to have other policies?
I think it would be similar to pretty much everything we do, where people, we ask people to do things and then they come back with recommendations and we discuss it.
Yeah, but I'd rather we discuss it so that they know what our goal is before they go out.
For each of these.
Well, here's another one.
Decide on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the policy is.
You're certainly free to go through the policy book and see which ones you think need to be done and bring them. We can't do it all at once. I'm trying to go through the ones I think are, really important to do at this point because they haven't been looked at since '09. Or before.
So I would say that policy regarding computer, email, and internet use should be changed into what's called an information security policy. I'm surprised it's not required of us from our audits.
I think it's been on there, right? Hasn't it? Every year?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to take that on.
Well, you've already...
But I think, that is an information security policy. It's part of a standard technology compliance thing. This must go back. I have to actually take a look at this. But
where did this draft come from?
There was no date on this.
Yeah. Okay.
This is something that thanks to the technology working group was working on, but it never was brought forward to be adopted.
Okay.
This was never adopted. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a draft. I think, have you had a chance to read this draft? And
I think I wrote a lot of this draft.
Oh, okay. So you already think that it has the wrong title. It's
already 5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's
Which
a
is
lot
why,
of duplication of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, email as opposed to...
Well, not only, in one place it says you can't do this, and the next place it says, except when you do this.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. In fact, and then there was another one where I said it's for use of the town's computer network for non-governmental business purposes prohibited during business hours. And it's like, why not prohibited, period? I mean, why would, after business hours, you can use it for, playing video games?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I had marked up a copy, and I thought I brought it with me, but I didn't.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So what do you suggest, Nathan?
It's fine. But I think it's more than one person going off and doing it. I think we have to have a couple of people going and discussing it. I think for the discussion at this table tonight is, do we want a policy to cover this?
Yes.
Is this the sort of thing, or is it, should it be tighter? Do we need to have it also, reviewed by town council, for instance? Are there drafts elsewhere that we could be starting with instead of this draft? I mean, what, and who's interested in pursuing it?
Well, for this particular thing, there's just a very standard format that you use.
Yeah. Every institution has one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to steal mine from work and adopt it too.
I can do the same thing, yeah.
Well, how about you two talk about it? You both seem to have access and interest and expertise. And I would like to, that's your thing.
Okay. We'll do that.
Because Nathan, when do you think we'll hear about the transfer station stickers? Because you said you would take that on, and we're going to be seeing the trash people and Gary on the 25th.
Kind of like composting program.
Right. Yeah, but they would be also a place where we want to ask them, what do they think? Unless you've already asked them.
Those bins are going to be too small.
Oh, they'll add
Need more of them, which is a good problem.
This needed to be done in 2
No,
weeks.
exactly.
By the time we get down there to cut the ribbon on Saturday, they were,
So,
one of them was already full.
I was looking at this as a summer project, not as it has to be done by 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Well, no, it's just that we're meeting them with them, so I would like to have them involved in the process.
Yeah, this is more about, this isn't about household recycling, this is about the transfer station stickers, right?
Right, but we're going to have people
Would
that
like
are
some input from them.
We would like to
Yeah.
have input from them.
But, I don't mind reaching out to, is it really Gary Davis and then the...
And the household recycling.
And the household, because I'm the liaison to household recycling.
Gary's actually on that committee. That probably would come as a surprise to him.
Well, they have been talking, they've been talking with
Yeah.
it fairly regularly. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
would you
just-
like me to reach out to them? And if you want, Nathan, I can check in with you and you can see what
I never
advice you
discourage
have for me.
anybody from doing anything that they're willing to do.
Okay, and the specific
move-
policy
To
we
move
had
the
in
process along.
Yeah, that's policy number 5. It's going to be in here somewhere, right?
It's in there, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I don't need
Town administrator, no, sorry, Collins Center report on organization efficiency of town. Page 41.
Before we do that,
Yes.
can I just make a suggestion on the policy guidelines and
Yeah.
review, policy and guideline review? I think it'd be helpful if you could select the ones you want us to review, that we got them more than, a couple of
Okay, I
days
have a
before
memo
the
already
meeting.
written,
Yeah.
and that, which I wrote to Tim,
Okay.
where I said which ones I thought.
Yeah.
And we've just been stepping
Yeah,
down
going
that
through 'em,
memo.
yeah, which is great.
So I'll be happy to CC.
So maybe, I don't know if Tim or you or Jen could shoot, the next 2 that are due to come up, send them out earlier, just so people would have a chance to look them over before, more than a few days before the meeting. Yeah, that'd be great. All right, Collins Center, yeah,
Yeah.
succession
One
planning.
of the major recommendations was to identify critical managers and employees who are nearing retirement age and begin the transfer of knowledge and skills through hiring employees at lower levels to work with these individuals. And the question is how, I think we all agree that this is a good goal to try to shoot for. And the question is, how do we get to that goal? What steps do we need to take in order to get there? I mean, we have some positions in the town which are not under our direct control because they're under another elected board's control. However, they're in our controls insofar that our town assistant is the personnel director, and he needs to have control over the personnel in town, and how do we manage all these pieces?
Well, I think we should have a policy that staff, that is town employees, are under the direction of the town administrator.
No matter who they
are.
Which board they serve.
Correct.
I don't think we can just do it that way. I think we would need to make Tim a town manager, which is a fairly significant shift.
It was attempted.
There are 2 different job descriptions?
It's a very different job description. And so, I mean, it really, Tim, you could probably speak to it more. I mean, it's like the difference between Concord, where the town administrator basically has ultimate authority over a lot of things.
You mean the manager?
Not the board of
He's the town
selectmen.
manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a lot. The board of selectmen lose a lot of their authority in that case. It's kind of like a strong chief and a weak chief. town manager and a town administrator are different things.
Is that a state regulation, or is it?
Tim, why don't you go into it? Probably know more about it.
Well, I mean, you're right, a town manager is a much stronger position, you know, in terms of administration and authority. You can strengthen the town administrator's position through a bylaw or through a charter change, a home rule amendment. There are ways to do that, but you're right, it has to be in writing somewhere.
Yeah, but I guess
It has to be a bylaw or you know, codified in some fashion.
the question, let's ask a fundamental question. To whom do these town employees report?
Right.
Yes. That. And why?
Yeah.
Well, I think for the most part, they would say they report to their elected boards that they
What about
work for.
Board of Health?
When they need something from the town, they come to me.
Okay.
But otherwise, they consider themselves somewhat free agents.
Do these boards understand that? That the paid staff report to them?
I think some do.
Well, some do because they consider themselves the hiring authority for, you know, if they were hiring a new administrator, they would feel that that was their hire.
And is that,
Not the selectmen's hire.
is there a town bylaw that says that?
It's not referenced to really.
It's not, okay.
You know.
It's just tradition. I mean, it's just kind of the way we've always done it.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think we can operate it as if that authority existed. I mean, I don't mind, you know, working with the departments to try to create a more cohesive organization. In the study, which was 5-6 years ago, the average age of department heads was 57. Well, nobody's getting any younger since the study came out.
They're not.
We need to think about
there's some
succession in the number of areas, and also reorganizing. I mean,
So, does it mean
in particular.
that we need to meet individually with the other boards that have aging employees and discuss this with them?
I think it has to happen at that level initially, yeah.
So we have two decisions to make, I think. Number one, we're going to keep it the way it is, where the accountability for the staff rests with the board to whom they support. Or the accountability lies somewhere else, such as with the town administrator. And I think if it's the former, that's fine. But then we have to make sure that those boards and committees are held accountable for the kinds of things that we need to have done, such as succession planning,
I don't see how we
hiring, and that sort of thing.
Hold them accountable?
Yeah.
I mean, the really hard thing is it's kind of counterintuitive to like the policy that Kate distributed last time, which is, you know, somebody can only be a chair once, you know, no successive chair. And so I think, you know, it's hard to have staff report to a new person every single year. And there's just no consistency. I'm fully in support of it going, you know, to Tim. It'd be interesting to see maybe if Tom knows of other towns that do it without a town manager and how they've structured it and maybe
That
what
would
their
be a
bylaw
great-
might look like or
Yes.
something like that so
Yes.
that we could kind of get some ideas before we start meeting with
I
the
agree.
groups. I think
Yeah.
we need to know what we would kind of like the outcome to be.
I mean, for instance, if discipline was necessary, who would do it? Who's responsible?
Nobody at this point.
Well,
And
so
you're
that's- we
asking
can-
them,
I can tell you how the library does it.
Okay.
We have just had a situation where not discipline, but a firing was necessary. The Board of Trustees hires and fires the library director, regardless of age. And the library director and the library assistant director are responsible for hiring the rest of the library staff. Those two people report to the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
That's kind of very similar to what we were just talking
Yes.
about. Right?
Yeah.
If it was Tim, what we need to do, though, is get to the point where all those the rest of the library report to Tim. Not saying it's the library, just using your
But all of
example.
those employees follow the salary and wage chart that's established by the town. And
That's
there's
right.
the Personnel board,
Right.
and personnel administrator, and they follow the personnel
policy in the personnel bylaw that's administered by the personnel administrator, which is me.
I can tell you, I don't even,
So it's kind of
I don't know if it's a part of onboarding or what, but I can tell you when I first started on committees, I would get some of the people who supported that committee calling me up, and they'd be telling me about like what was going on and what the problems were, and I'd be sitting at work and I'd listen, I'd talk for an hour, and I'd hang up the phone and I'd say, why did I just get that call? And all of a sudden, one day it dawned on me, they report to me. And nobody had actually told me that
I had the
before.
same issue on a board that I was on,
Yeah.
my first volunteer
Nobody told me
position
that
here.
these people report to me, that I'm responsible for mentoring them, I'm responsible for discipline, I'm responsible for making sure that they have what they need.
Which is-
Nobody told me that.
Which is an untenable position because you are not on the ground and really have very little way to give them what they need.
Wow, I called Tim.
Well,
Right. And also
I think we should short circuit that then.
Yeah, and
I think there's got to be a lot of pushback from some of the boards.
Well, that's
You know
okay.
what
There may be, but I think we should have we should not shy away from the conversation.
I mean, we can have that conversation. Say, look, if you're not going to do the job,
Yeah.
To look at some forms of
Yes.
organization.
and
I know
just,
Vanessa looked into this, and she was
Yes.
just told it was town manager or nothing.
Well,
So
I think there's a middle ground, but it still involves change that
Right.
some boards may not be willing to make.
Yeah.
well, and I would recommend that while we look into it and figure out what the possibilities are, at the same time, we try to be collegial in working with the board that has a person for whom we need a succession plan, and we should do that, follow, so just be very specific about, is it, whatever it is, 2 or 3 boards where there's somebody in a critical role that we know is going to be retiring. Well, but whatever, let's pick out the 1, 2, or 3 that are priorities and be working with those boards, or at least the chair of those boards, to start saying we need to address this and we need it to be done, in a concrete
And at least start
fashion.
having conversations about when do they think they're leaving.
I don't think you can legally
No, you can't really
do
ask that, but, yeah, I've already had the conversation with Sylvia and with Angie, and like, they know it's coming, but ultimately, so I guess I want to go back to just a little while ago, too. So, like, when I got on the ConsCom, literally my first meeting with Sylvia when I met her, she's like, you're my boss. I was like, okay. And certain boards, I think, take that to heart and other boards don't. So, I think we need to make sure that every board fully understands that. Like you said, you came in and didn't have any idea.
No idea.
Right, but ultimately, it really falls on the chair, right? And typically the chair is somebody that's been on the board for a little while. But it's this whole chicken and egg thing, because you report to, or your administrator reports to you, but as a board you rely very heavily on that administrator. So, you really, my experience is working with Sylvia, and Sylvia's fantastic, and, you can push on Sylvia, she'll push back, sort of thing. And ultimately, you come to the solution that makes the most sense for the town, right? I mean, she's just fantastic in that way. I don't know if every board is like that. I would like to think that they are, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't been on every board. So, yeah, well, right, exactly, and that's the thing. And, to Nathan's point, too, though, with boards changing over, you really never know what sort of mixed bag you're going to get.
Yeah.
I do think if we change Tim's responsibilities, that 5-year contract that we just signed becomes obsolete. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the issue that I'm kind of bumping into with ConsCom is not really an issue, but the confusion is, well, where do we even start, right? And I think, like in ConsCom's situation, for example, my whole thinking was that we can't afford more than 2 positions, right? So how do you have a succession plan, with a current administrator and a second position, right, but still maintain the current position, right? So right now there's the administrator and then basically an assistant, right? You can't really put a third person in there because it's going to be a significant salary that the town can't afford for 3 years, right?
And if the person currently in the assistant role is not in a in a place to be considered to take over.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Right, it's unfortunate, but I think, right, and I think ultimately what has to happen is, we have to have that, it has to be a larger discussion, obviously, but I think in most cases, that second position really needs to be like a true assistant to the administrator and somebody who, can really fill that void when they're out of the office and is, in a sense, being groomed into that position. Whether or not they'll stay, who knows, but at least, that transfer of knowledge is there, and, it'd be unfortunate if somebody resigned and then the other person left, but I think, if somebody comes into that position, it's like any other position, right? If somebody comes into that and you say, look, this is your long-term goal, and then we bring somebody, I think the mindset in, people who work in town government is that, you want to stay at a place a long-ish time, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think there's a second issue as well, and that is the system that we have, and it may be, that's one we keep. It creates the silo effect. That this board is an entity unto itself. The people who work for that board are entities. There's no cross-training. There's no cross-coverage. We're a tiny little staff here.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard.
Really handicaps what we can do.
Yeah. Right.
And if we had a more coherent personnel management system, it would certainly at least allow more cross-training and more communication, lots of things that we don't get under the current status quo.
So what if instead, sorry.
Because directly related to something I said before, I think most people said you can't. I'd like to ask town council. I believe that for the purposes of planning, you are allowed to ask when somebody plans on retiring. I just looked it up.
Okay.
I've done it. I believe that you can. Do you mind asking our personnel council? I forget what he's called.
Labor Council.
Labor Council.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that you can, because your hands can't be tied as a company in planning.
Yeah.
You can't force them to retire, but you can ask them what their plans are.
What if they say, I haven't decided?
Then that's fine. Because you can't force them to retire.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But you certainly can ask them when they plan on retiring.
So what if we attack this from a slightly different angle, and instead of changing Tim's job description, we enhance his position as head of personnel? We beef that part of his job up to give him, because right now he has responsibility with no authority, which is an untenable position to have.
Story of my life.
I was like being on the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
That's why it gets back to, I think, just finding out what other towns do.
I'm thinking if we could give him more authority as the personnel director,
it's going to go right to his head.
Well, and I think part of it too is, it's the elected boards too versus the appointed.
Yes.
The appointed boards shouldn't be an issue at all. It's the elected boards.
No, it's not. It is not the appointed boards. But which ones are not elected? See, we have COMSCOM is appointed. Okay, so that one's not a problem.
Health is elected.
Health is elected, and you can ask yourself, why is health elected? But anyway,
that's another discussion.
It's not, a lot of these things are not. These are not uniform across towns either. Planning board is elected in Concord. It's appointed by the selectmen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe that's because they have a town I don't know. But I mean, maybe we need to look at our town makeup and how it's, because it's pretty difficult to run right now. So it's. We're not going to solve this tonight, but I think we need to start thinking about how we can do this.
But in terms of moving ahead on any specific places where we need to do we really need to have the discussion.
I mean, we do have a status quo, and we should be dealing with that unless we change things.
Yes. So what are the next steps then following the status quo for those places like CONSCOM?
Yeah, I mean there are at least a few.
We're going to find out first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it all starts personally. I think it all starts with making sure that we're instituting performance reviews.
Yes.
And a part of performance review is professional development and knowing, having a discussion, what do they want to be doing, where do they want to be going, what are their future plans? It's all part of that process.
Okay, that's...
And, it was on our goals last year and we didn't even get to it, but I think ensuring that every employee has a performance review that has those sections in it is the starting point.
And is that then is the responsibility of the board to whom they report?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's whoever their manager is.
Right.
Could I ask a favor? Would you please rewrite the performance review? The one that's there has been in place for years. It doesn't address those very issues, except in a very oblique way, and it isn't tailored to each of the positions. The library fills one out every year with the director.
FOR, not FOUR.
And we all do it, and we get together with her and we talk about it. And we were told on several occasions before your time, Jen, that we were the only board who was doing it. And I talked to a couple of other board chairs, and they were saying, it's a badly written thing anyway.
I did it on his time.
So why do it?
That's in the personnel policy?
Yeah.
Do you know about this?
That's being reviewed.
Yes.
You're talking about the form.
Yeah.
The form itself, it's outdated.
It's outdated. Perhaps that's the purview of the personnel board and not the board.
No.
Is that under the personnel board?
It should be. The form is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
That
which is
probably
another
dates
thing.
back.
So we're going to meet with them anyway.
Oh, yeah, it's long before.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, because part of it too is that if you are developing a succession plan, right, and you want that second role to potentially fill that first role,
Yes.
you want to make sure that second individual is happy and going to stay.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yes.
And it's
So you
getting
wanna
the
make sure that
training they need to feel like they're going to be able to take over the job.
Right,
All that,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's definitely a critical piece. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
But
think
yeah,
we're...
I think, right, so just, so the action items from this, because that's kind of what
Yeah.
Barney was trying to get at. Yeah, the action items would be that you're going to discuss it with council, and I think first things first is determine exactly what we could do with,
Legally?
right, with, elected officials and now an potentially underpaid town administrator. And ultimately, what role you could fill as an administrator, right? I mean, that doesn't need to be necessarily a manager.
Yes, as an administrator, and I think also as the director of personnel.
Yeah, director of personnel. And I've already started the conversation with CONSCOM. Right, obviously planning board and Board of Health are the other two, right? I mean, just throw it out there. Who's the planning, are you the planning board?
I think I'm
Or are you the
planning board.
Yeah, so maybe that could be just an initial discussion.
Yes.
I mean, Pete certainly knows. And who's it now, Todd? Is Todd the chair?
I don't know, as of the new year, I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe that's just an email that needs to be sent, just, hey, this is something. I mean, he must know too. Not a smart guy. So,
And then what about the Board of Health? Who's that?
yeah, so that's Alan, right? You're
Alan,
the Board of Health,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, and at least toss it out there.
Yep.
And then,
Okay.
yeah, because there aren't any, David's not coming anywhere anytime soon.
And
then, did you say about the performance review, to pull that up?
Yeah, and then the
Take a look
performance
at it?
review piece, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking, I know there was something else.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And I mean, I don't know who else, Nathan, I'm sure your company does it, but these 360 reviews too, so not only do you get reviewed by your manager, you get reviewed by your peers, and I think that's important as well, and usually the person throws out 4 or 5 people that, they would like to have review them, but ultimately you can pick anybody you want. I mean, usually what I'll do is, I'll pick a couple on the list and then go with a couple others that I know they work with, and then you usually get a full perspective.
And does it also include a self-evaluation?
There's always a
Person
self,
does
oh, I hate
themselves.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, self-evaluations are tough. But also, too, then, I mean, unfortunately, like, everybody gets the same COLA, right? So you don't ultimately get the benefit from that.
Reward.
Right, yeah, but,
For performance.
right, but,
Well, that's how it's been done in the past. We don't know.
It doesn't have to be done that
You
way.
know,
right, well,
down
that's,
the road, if we get this up and running and we get these reviews and there's somebody who's clearly outstanding,
yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how that would work, but anyway, but with the performance review, yeah, it's definitely, I think,
Well,
something.
we've done this, we used to just we did the 2% pot, then we divvied up.
That's-
the performance.
that's
Yeah,
another
well, that's
way
right,
of doing
exactly,
it.
yeah, I've seen that
you know,
before.
and there's
Yeah.
always,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And we did away with percentage increases,
yeah,
Right,
right,
which only rewarded the people who made the most money.
right, yeah.
yes.
We usually got that
exactly.
part of the pot first.
Yes, yeah. No,
Damn it.
that's true, that's true.
You academics, you.
Going back to a comment that you made, Nathan, about the policy about, chairmanships rotating, I think we need to talk about. See, that's the kind of thing that I'd like, that maybe we'll put on our next agenda. Is that a policy we want to have?
I think it is personally, because I think that that's what makes it a more rounded board rather than just always being driven by one person.
I agree. Okay, I thought you were bringing it up for the opposite reason, so
No,
that's
I
why
was
I'm
not.
asking. Oh, okay.
I think it also will lead to less burnout.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's that.
And more knowledge among
And
Yeah,
spreading
that-
it.
that's-
board members.
because
You learn a
part
whole
of-
lot more as chairman than you do.
It's
I really do.
a
Yeah.
form of
Always rotate. I
succession
was not
for the
suggesting
boards
anything
as well
else.
as for the
Right.
Exactly. Gotta be on
succession for the
point.
boards as well as for the
Right. I wasn't
employee.
dissing
The employee.
I wasn't
Oh, okay.
dissing the policy about the switch. I was saying that makes it hard for the people that report to the board
Yes,
because their
okay.
manager changes every year.
That's true.
But if we
But
change
that's why,
that,
if we
yes.
have the manager, if Tim is actually the
Doing the
ultimate
performance review,
manager,
yeah.
then they're not
Right.
being
Right.
kind of jerked by the chain,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So then that means that we might want to be starting to enforce that.
Enforce.
that
Changeover of
policy.
the chair.
Or not enforce it, but
I think we do try to enforce it. I just think there's some boards that, unfortunately.
Nobody will take the job.
They're unpaid volunteers and you can't force them to do it.
No.
And I was on HISCOM for 4 years, and nobody, once Sylvia got off, nobody else would serve as the chair. And so I was chair for 3 years in a row because nobody else would.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I mean,
But, maybe you do something like, I've been on a number of boards, actually, that's sort of the way we're doing it here, right? But we encourage these committees to change the way they're set up so that you have a chair and a vice chair, with the understanding that the vice chair is going to be taking over from the chair. So somehow you structure it so that hopefully you can get a volunteer to take that beginning level, knowing that over the course of 3 years, they're going to end up being the chair.
A lot of them do have vice chairs, like
Yeah.
HISCOM had vice chair.
Yeah, and just never wanted to take over the chair.
They'd take it over if I wasn't there.
That's what they
It
thought
was
the
fun.
job was.
Ken Grady and I had this thing that, whenever I wasn't there, he canceled the meeting. It was perfect.
The library has a problem with that because there are only 3 trustees.
Yeah.
One of them has to be the chair, one's going to be a treasurer, and the other one has to be a clerk.
Yeah.
So what we do when we take people onto that board is we simply say, we rotate these positions every year.
Right.
And it's just, that's how we do it. So there's always a different chair, but it's a small enough committee so that there isn't a problem with the director having to deal with a different chair every year because all 3 of us are always there.
Right, right.
Right.
So if you do rotate the positions, as Nathan suggested, and you act collegially, you can make it work.
Yeah.
Should we move on to town administrator's report?
Yes, I'm ready.
Good discussion, though.
No, I think it was. I think we need more of this kind of stuff.
First item in my report is once again is the proposed complete streets design contract. It would be niche engineering for the complete streets projects. This was on the agenda last time. You asked to bring it back. Well, you asked to see the final contract, which Niche only provided to us yesterday, so I understand that we don't want to act on it this evening, and we need some more time to review it. That being said, they'd like to get going on the project, but if the board has questions or regarding the scope or anything with respect to the contract.
Well, do we know, I mean, we have a dollar amount assigned there. How do we know that that's a reasonable amount? I mean, was it competitive?
Well, 3 firms were asked to give proposals to Complete Streets Committee or Working Group, whatever status for that. They recommended that niche be engaged by the town.
But do we know what the other bids were?
Yeah, so it was, Niche and Tech. They both came in around the same. So Tech was the one that helped us through the entire process. And then the third one was Stamsky. And the committee as a whole, and I think we even had this discussion here, agreed that Stamsky really wasn't, they were significant, well, not significantly lower, but they were lower. But yeah, that committee felt as well that Stamsky just really wasn't qualified. So it went back to, I think Tim went back to Tech and Niche and said, sharpen your pencils a bit, kind of bring everything, closer to exactly what we asked for, and they did. And they were about a couple $1,000s off.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's all I read. I mean, I just there was no information about that in this anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Here's the contract.
Yeah. So Niche. I think Niche was a tad cheap. Were they a tad cheap? Or maybe they were.
$1,000 or so cheaper than.
Yeah.
They were comparable bids.
Yeah, exactly. They did throw in a few more things, like stormwater. Landscaping, right. Right, yeah, there were a few things that, the only other thing was that they had fewer hours for the engineer on site than Tech did. But I mean, basically, in the grand scheme of things, it was very close.
Okay.
They look very similar in terms of the way they spec'd everything out. And we've had experience with Niche in the town before. They are the planning board. Peer reviewer thing. And did somebody check with council, right? It's a non-issue.
Correct.
To have them do this.
Right.
So.
Okay, I just wanted, had no information. No. You get something the day before, so spend $65,000 without any. Somebody's actually worked on this previously.
Yeah, no, it's actually a good committee.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I move that the board award the Complete Streets Design, Land Surveying, and Transportation Engineering Services contract to Niche Engineering in the amount of $64,500.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, that unanimous.
I don't think the Center Park agreement made it into the packet, at least I couldn't.
No, it didn't.
No. So I'll bring that back to you. I did talk to town council and we made some changes to that.
Okay.
I'll bring that next time.
Just to remind you, because I looked it up, the item 9 was, if they decided they couldn't do it, that it was all. It's going to go back to DPW.
Oh, right.
That was the thing.
Item number 3, the Caroline Hill Scholarship Committee made their annual recommendations for distribution, $10,000 in scholarships to, it's not just high school seniors, there's college students that are eligible as well. And the memo is recommended distributions attached.
Yep.
It's the 2019-2020 academic year. It's correct in motion, it's incorrect in paragraph. But you can do with that. We've been doing this for a while,
I move that the board approve the award of $10,000 in scholarships from the Caroline Hill Scholarship Fund for the 2019-2020 academic year to be dispersed as recommended by the Caroline Hill Scholarship Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So long.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like to congratulate those.
Don't do it just yet, though, because they send a letter, and I made that mistake once.
I'm just going to say I'm congratulating
Okay.
the scholarship winners.
Yeah, I congratulated.
I wasn't going to read it.
I congratulated a neighbor of mine, and I was like, oh.
They changed the letter. They used to have these, we recommend these students, and these students, we don't recommend get any money.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, really?
So you used to have
That's
to
mean.
wipe it out when we sent it to the mosquito.
Oh, gosh.
So,
Okay.
item number 4, also attached to my report, you'll see an application for a one-day beer and wine license for Clark Farm Market for Saturday, June 15th from 4 to 7 p.m. We've had a number of one-day events in the past, or we've granted licenses for those events. We've got a suggested motion.
I move to approve a one-day wine and malt beverages license to Jeffrey Freeman, owner of Clark Farm Market, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, for an event to be held at 201 Bedford Road on Saturday, June 15th, 2019, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Rain date is June 16th. Subject to the application providing applicant providing a host liquor liability insurance certificate and contacting the police department to determine the necessity of a police detail prior to the event.
Second.
I have a question. Do we need to put this business about the police detail if the police chief has already signed off on it? Isn't that what they've done?
They've consulted with the police.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. You can leave it.
At this point, then.
Yeah. Right, because I have asked in the past that it not be dependent on that they already have that.
Police chief sign off. Police detail required, no.
Okay,
29 May 2019.
Yeah, so they've already done that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay.
Okay, and then item number 5, you actually voted on.
We did that already.
Oh, yes.
Emergency declaration. Perfect. Spend a lot of appropriations necessary for the elevator. And then we've got the upcoming proposed upcoming meeting schedule, and I still only know when Barney's going on vacation. So anybody knows what your plans are, let me know.
Yeah, I'm gone the same time as Barney. I'm gone the 9th through the, whatever the fall is, 17th. Apparently Barney takes longer vacations than me.
That's right. Because I'm older, I've earned it.
Oh, you've earned it? Oh, I haven't earned it yet. Well, maybe one day.
I'm gone until December 31st.
And I may not make the 25th. Maggie has to travel for work now. So I may not make that. I'll know soon if we can get a sitter. Either way, I'd have to leave early because I don't want to spend $2,000 on a sitter. But
This is Carlisle.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Anyone else knows, or besides the next few days, let us know.
Okay.
And I think that's all I had in the report, Madam Chair.
Well, and hold on, Tim, I hope you have a really nice vacation. You're leaving soon.
We have vacation
And Jen, you're also going on vacation soon, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's holding down the fort? Yeah.
Rudderless.
Yeah.
we're going to come in
I'm away for the same period, too.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so Alan's also going away, so there won't be any trouble.
Okay.
Okay. On the minutes.
Right, don't we have to do the liaison reports? Or they, what is the, yeah. I would like to report that I did go to the meeting of the trustees of the library as the liaison last night, and they were very well run, well organized, and very informative. Because I just want to clarify, are the liaison assignments that are in here, they're done now?
Those are gone
Those are
unless
official.
somebody has an objection.
Okay.
That's what we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay, and you heard no objections?
I didn't.
Okay.
I think what's happened is that Jen had made note of, the horse trading that we did, and that is now reflected in this.
Okay.
this note. So if there's a mistake in there, or that we didn't get it right, let us know.
And are those committees and boards informed now of who their liaison is?
Email went out,
Okay, great.
just to add each one of you to their emails.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
So before I ask for a motion on the minutes, I'm going to ask for any, normally I give my changes to Jen before the meeting, but I was late this week and only read them before the meeting. I have some questions about the minutes. Does anybody else have any questions about the minutes? Okay, my questions refer to our discussion of the review of the Collins Center Town Organizational Study recommendations. And there is one, so that page where there's the strikeout text on it. First of all, on the Board of Selectmen should assess the potential of strengthening the position of town administrator in order to consolidate daily supervision over operations and performance of staff. It says completed. I don't know if it was completed since we discussed it again tonight, so I would have called it ongoing. And then two down from that, the town, all that strikeout, I don't know why it was in strikeout.
They might have hit something.
Okay, so it should not be in strikeout, I think. And it says not completed, and rather than not completed, I would say it was not supported.
Yes. Yep, because that was a recommendation, yeah.
Okay. Then, so aside from one other typo, that was basically what I had. So now I would entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the minutes of Tuesday, May 28th, 2019, as amended.
I already said it last time.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's good. And Jen, do you want this copy?
One thing I did forget to do was made you cut it, the list of things I presented, which was just to Nook.
Your,
Oh. Okay. Well, that's fine. That wouldn't have changed anybody's.
Not that he's obsolete.
Okay. Liaison
It was a
reports.
joke, yeah. Because it was about the town
Minutes.
administrator.
We're done.
That's it. Adjournment,
I move-
10:15.
I move adjourn.
We're 20 minutes early, guys.
Oh.
Well, that's amazing.
I think we ought to ask Kate to be chairman forever.
Think of all the life we'll get back.